40-year-old computer business owner Mark Metzger is suing his ex-wife, 38-year-old clerk Helen Metzger, for damages from filing false police charges.
Order. All rise. Yes, this is case number 486 on the calendar in the matter of Metzger versus Metzger. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
I want to tell you something. All those papers frighten me. But from what I read in your complaint, this is not an unusual situation. Mr. Metzger, you and the defendant have been divorced since when?
This year.
And how long have you been separated?
Almost 3 years.
How long were you married?
Well, we've known each other for 18 years. We didn't marry right away. I'd say about 15.
And you have 2 girls?
Yes, ma'am.
2 daughters. How old are the girls?
One's 17 and the other one's 10.
And according to your complaint, your 17-year-old daughter lives with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And the 10-year-old child lives with Mrs. Metzger. How long has your 17-year-old been living with you?
3 years, a little over 3 years.
Since she was 14, is that when you moved in with your dad? Is that right?
Yes.
Do you want to be here?
Yes.
Or would you prefer to be outside?
I prefer to stay in here, please.
Okay. This lawsuit says, Mr. Metzger, that your wife, your former wife now, has embarked on a campaign of harassment by having you arrested on various charges. All the charges were subsequently dismissed against you, and you want to be reimbursed for not only this harassment, but for the attorney's fees that you've been caused to pay, lost time, etc. Okay. When was the last time, not the first time, but the last time you were arrested as a result of a complaint by your former wife?
The 8th of 8/28/99.
That was the last time?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell me why you waited 2 years to pursue this?
The only reason I waited 2 years to pursue it is because Mrs. Metzger keeps taking me to court and suing me in different courts, and she's getting dismissed on all of them. They're not coming up with evidence.
No, I understand that, but if the last instance where she had you arrested was 2 years ago,
right.
My question is,
Right.
why have you waited 2 years to pursue this civil remedy?
Your Honor, I wasn't even going to pursue it. I was just going to let it go because she was my ex-wife. But the harassment still continues from also her mother.
How?
Phone calls, threatening phone calls, police reports that she's making up that are completely false, that the police don't even come and talk to me anymore because they know it.
By her or by her mother?
Both.
Well, when was the last time your former wife made a police report?
Well, every time I turn around, there's a visitation order with my youngest daughter. When I don't show up, she says I don't show up, which I always show up. She makes an incident report. And when you been through what I've been through in 3 or 4 years, this is not only a 3-year-old case, this is actually a 5-year-old case because I divorced her one time before. This has continued for 5 years, and I've got to the point now that I'm tired of it.
What's been happening in the last 6 months?
I have a communication order, court order, that I'm supposed to communicate with my youngest daughter from Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 8. When we call to talk to my daughter, my youngest daughter tells me, Mom, unplugs the phone so I cannot talk to her. So I had asked my daughter, when the next time I'm supposed to call you, baby, do me a favor and go check the plug and tell me if it's just hanging on the wall. My daughter comes to me and tells me, Daddy, that's exactly what Mommy's doing. Now, my daughter has the right to communicate with me too and call me. I asked my daughter, why do you not call me? Mommy will not let me call you. She refuses to let me call. Now, the judge has just came down on her 2 weeks ago on this incident because he understood it too and seen it and told her that.
Do you have the last court order? Let me see the last series of court orders.
I don't have it with me because we just got out of court and I haven't got it sent to me yet.
Your Honor, this is from November 13th of 98, and I have the most recent one here.
I'd like to see the most
which
recent.
was just sent to me from my attorney.
Let me see it, please.
Just a moment. Let me...
I'll take a look at that one while she's looking for the other one. Thank you, Bird. All right, so you can't find the last order.
No, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Fine. Okay, close up your books. Mr. Metzger, what I assume you want is, so you want somebody to, I assume, you want somebody to say to your former wife, let's just stop it. I assume that that's what you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did your older daughter go to live with your husband with your permission?
No, ma'am.
Do you regularly visit with her?
He does not bring her to...
No.
No.
She's 17 years old. It's not a question of he doesn't bring. Okay. That's not a question of he doesn't bring. You say that with regard to a child who's 10 years old, not for a child like this who's 17 years old. So you don't see her. So you are estranged from your daughter at
Yes.
this point. That's very sad.
Yes.
Put your hand down. I didn't ask you a question.
Okay. Sorry.
She came over for...
I didn't ask you a question.
Okay.
Looks to me from the stack of papers that I see on both of these desks, from your well-collated file, that the two of you have spent the majority of the last several years litigating over nonsense. And you've done that to the detriment of not only yourselves, but your children. Is it true, Mrs. Metzger, that you, on 2 occasions in 1999, caused Mr. Metzger to be arrested? Just answer the questions. Did you, in fact, do that?
I filed police reports, yes.
And is it also correct that both of those matters were ultimately dismissed?
No.
Which matter was not dismissed?
The matter with the photos was not dismissed. It was that they couldn't find enough information to prosecute.
So it was not prosecuted?
Right.
Okay.
Because I do have a letter...
This about photos involves some photos that were allegedly, according to you, sent by your now former husband, that were revealing pictures that was sent to either members of your family and or an employer. You said that only the plaintiff had copies of those pictures and had him arrested for harassment or whatever with regard to transmitting those pictures. But nothing ever happened to that case, so you want to show me...
Yes, he was the only person who had
I'm not getting into
those.
it. I'm not getting into it. These cases are 2 years old, so I'm not getting into it. Doesn't mean I'm finished with all of you, but whatever. They're photographs that I wouldn't like shared with anybody else.
Those were after the birth of my daughter.
I understand.
My eldest daughter.
Ultimately, the 2 cases were either dismissed or not prosecuted. Is that right? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mark Metzger says ex-wife Helen Metzger filed false charges against him on several occasions. Helen says Mark won't let her see their daughter.
In the last 2 years, there have been ongoing proceedings in family court with regard to your 2 children.
For custody, which I have open visitation with Chris Lynn when she chooses to do so, and she's able to call me whenever she chooses to do so.
Okay, but she has not. She has not
Other
chosen
than Christmas and Thanksgiving, she did come over for those holidays.
In the issues of custody, more often than not, a mother is granted custody of minor children. More often than not. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what it is. So I assume, Mrs. Metzger, that you are A, angry, B, hurt, that your oldest daughter chose to live with your husband some 2.5 or 3 years ago, and that you have now become estranged.
I am not angry with the fact.
Well, then, but are you telling me you consented to it in court?
When she actually left, no, I was not angry. I consented to it on February 6th of this year, yes.
3 years later. 3 years later, because you had no choice to consent to it, because a judge, when the judge talks to a 17-year-old and says, if you put me with my mother, I'm going to run away, judge has no other alternative. I mean, I lived in the family court for a quarter of a century, madam, so believe me, I know what's going on. Believe me, I know what's going on. I've read these papers. I could relive these papers and tell you exactly what happened in the courts over the last 3 or more years. Mr. Metzger, I want you to trust me on that one, sir.
Oh, I do. I know. I watch your show and I do.
I want you to trust me on that one.
I've seen your show many times. I believe you.
That does not mean, Mrs. Metzger, that you have any right or license to do anything to interfere, impede, negate, suggest, make it difficult for your younger daughter's father to have full and complete and open communication with him, hopefully whenever she wants to.
Your Honor.
I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished yet. I know all the tricks I know the unplugged phones. I know the not being there with a 10-year-old. I know all of those things. And it's not good for children. The fact that you can't stand each other anymore has nothing to do with the two children you created.
I agree with you 100%.
Good.
However, but what he has stated is untrue.
About what?
I was always home at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock just so they can have that communication. I never unplugged the phone. I never did any such thing. I always rushed home so he can have that conversation time with her. Prior to this year, he had no communication with her whatsoever, and we were there continuously.
When was the last time there was a problem with pickup or delivery of the child during visitation?
It hasn't been recent as far as with Emily, with Mark picking up Emily. That was just back in '99. He's been pretty regular, but as far as him dropping off Chrislyn from age of 14 through now, I understand that. I'm just saying, no, she has not brought her, but maybe she hasn't chose to come either.
Your 17-year-old daughter, if she wants to see you, will see you, Mrs. Metzger.
Exactly, I understand that.
There's a reason. It may not be a good reason, because I'm not finished talking to her yet. We haven't even started yet. And I assume that you feel as if you have good reason to have cut your mother off.
Yeah.
You want to tell me about what that is?
Don't know.
Like, how do you want me to start, like, where do you want me to start telling you from?
Well, why don't you just tell me from your heart why you think at this point, now that it appears at least, that all of the legal issues have been resolved. You've probably spoken to more judges and more psychiatrists and psychologists and law guardians over the last few years than you want to talk to for the rest of your life. So now it's all over. So I want you to tell me right now, just from here, why you don't pursue a relationship with your mother.
I don't talk to my mother because she's done a lot of hurtful things to me, and I seen her with a woman when I was in 7th grade, and then she told me that she was leaving us and she was going to go live with this woman, and she left, so I was like, okay, then, and after that, I really wasn't close to my mom at all. I didn't want to talk to her because it hurt me really bad that she did that, and I haven't been able to talk to her since then.
You think parents are perfect?
No.
They're not perfect. Neither are kids. And there is no question in my mind that your mother has done things that hurt you. Right? On tissue? Okay. I don't think your mother woke up one morning, ever, and said to herself, I have a design to hurt my children. She may well have woken up and say, I have a design to hurt you. But that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes adults have changes in their lives. I'm not suggesting to you that it's easy for any teenage girl and their mother. Under ordinary circumstances, that's not easy. And usually teenage girls prefer their fathers. That's why even guys who are macho and say, I want to have a son, know that if they're smart, they'll pray for a daughter. Doesn't mean, in her own way, she doesn't love you. And I'm telling you that it's probably best for you, long term, to see her. I'm not saying you have to go over there every day and share your innermost thoughts and feelings. I'm just saying long term, it's probably best for you to open up that dialogue with your mom. Because although she's made, in your mind, errors, she's caused a lot of pain. According to what you tell me, she has destroyed your family, all of those things. She didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm out to destroy my family. Things became different, chaotic, whatever it was. And I'm sure she's done some vindictive things. I know it. She's your mother.
Yeah. But she's also called me a liar, and, like, we had to go to a counselor, and she told the counselor that I was lying, and she just repeatedly says things to me that hurt me that I can't forget.
I'm not suggesting you forgive them. You think that just because you're a parent, you are some sort of superhuman being. Parents are just people who had a baby. Not perfect. She's made mistakes. Have you made mistakes?
I have not made any towards her personally.
I didn't ask you that, Mrs. Metzger.
Yes,
asked
I
you
have
whether you
made mistakes, but not towards
Not
her
in-
personally.
Well, when you talk about towards her personally, Mrs. Metzger, she perceives the fact that her home was divided, and that was precipitated by you. Now, you may not say that that wasn't directed towards her personally, right? Wasn't directed towards her personally, but she was affected by it.
But I never left the home, Your Honor. I never left the home on that day like they're saying. When our family had broken up originally, it was when we were living in Riverside County, and I was thrown out of my house by Mr. Metzger here. I did not leave voluntarily.
Mrs. Metzger,
This has just been...
if you're going to have, even hope to have any relationship at all with your older daughter, you're going to have to understand that while you think you may not have done anything to her personally, like hit her personally, yelled at her personally, that the actions that she's seen over the course of the last several years have affected her personally. You have to soften up a little bit. I have a sense that your older daughter is prepared to soften up maybe a little bit. She's very unhappy that there's a piece of her, because she's crying now, there's a piece of her that is very unhappy that she doesn't have a relationship with you.
I requested through my children's attorney that we have counseling for her and I to repair our relationship.
And?
Since we are here now, I would like her to know that that is what I want to do. I just want to repair my relationship with my daughter. She's been my daughter for 17 years, and I love her dearly. She's always going to be my baby.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I have her in counseling now with 2 different counselors and a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist has asked Helen and called Helen to go to counseling because I pay for it. She refused to go, and she has not gone. This child goes to counseling, Your Honor.
Is that an open invitation for Mrs. Metzger?
She's had it.
Don't be angry. Don't be angry.
Open for her to go. Yeah, she wants to.
Open for her to go.
Right. Yes, I agree that they should.
What about you?
It doesn't matter to me if she goes or not.
Would you feel as if that was a step in the right direction?
In a way, yeah, but in a way, no, because how she told you that she's never done anything directly to me, she's never hit me directly or said anything to me, she's not telling you the truth on that.
She may not be, but starting from, if you start today, today's day one.
New day.
New day. I'm not saying you have to all be the Brady Bunch. Maybe if your therapist can help you open up a dialogue, you'll feel better. You won't feel all that stress inside. Are you in therapy?
No, ma'am.
You should be.
I believe we all should be.
Maybe, but certainly you should be. Sounds to me as if you need it. Mr. Metzger, this is your lawsuit, and I know that I went far afield of your lawsuit. But when I looked at it, and I got to the dates of the incidents that you were complaining about, they were 2 years old, and in my judgment, not something that I was prepared to address as far as a harassment. But I did get a sense that there was an ongoing process of family dysfunction. I didn't know whether any of my input might be valuable. I don't know whether it has been or not.
Yes, it has been.
Go, Mrs. Metzger. You won't be sorry.
Oh, I understand.
Good. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you.
And now the next case.
All parties on Stone versus Galvin. Step forward, please.
23-year-old appliance salesman William Stone claims 22-year-old construction worker Floyd Galvin beat him up in a bar parking lot. Floyd says he found a stranger in his car and he took matters into his own hands.
Mr. Stone, you are suing the defendant who assaulted you while you were sitting in his car.
Yes.
When did this occur?
It occurred on the 28th of January.
And where were you?
We were at a bar. Me and my friend had went out to a bar, and we'd been there since about 10 p.m., and then my ex-girlfriend was there. And me and her started talking through the night, and then basically, you know, we were dancing, we were kind of, you know, flirting around, all that good stuff, and eventually we went outside. Well, actually before that, my friend wanted to leave. He's like, well, you know, you're going to do your thing, I'm going to leave. Can you get a ride home? So I asked her, and she says, yeah, that's fine.
Well,
So,
what's her name?
Brittany. And basically, she's like, yeah, you know, I got a friend, I'll get you a ride home. So we're going on dancing, talking, and then we go outside. We ended up sitting in the defendant's car. I didn't know it was his car.
How did you end up in his car?
That was going to be the person who was taking us home.
Did she tell you whose car it was?
No.
Where were you sitting in the car?
She sat in the passenger side, and then I sat on her lap, and we were just like talking.
Was the door open or closed?
It was open at that point.
Okay, so she's sitting in the car and you sat on her lap
Yes,
with the door open.
Yeah, with my feet in the, like the driver's side, kind of hanging there. I was sitting with my back to the door.
That must have been, how did you get into that position?
I don't know, I just hopped in.
I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. I can sort of understand she's sitting in the passenger side and you got in and sat on her lap.
And then I just swung my legs over.
And sat on her lap, and if, I can imagine your feet on the sidewalk. But in order to get your feet over, you got to go over the dashboard?
No, I mean, there was space in at the floorboard. I just put my feet down.
And swung it over?
Yeah, I just slipped them through.
Okay. All right, so now your feet are on the other end.
But I'm still sitting in her lap. So my back was completely to the door.
Okay. Next.
Okay, so basically I got my back to the door, we're talking, and basically out of nowhere the defendant, I guess he's mad, he's jealous, opens the door, punches me.
Just a second. I thought you said the door was open.
The door was open.
So what do you mean he opened the door?
He opened the passenger side door, which my back was to.
Well, which door was open? You said...
The passenger's door. We both got in the passenger side.
You mean he opened the door more? Or
we closed it, and we were sitting there talking.
Oh, you left out closed.
I'm sorry.
You left out closed.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so you got in the car.
Yes.
I'm visualizing. She got in the car. You got on her lap. Squiggled your feet over.
Right.
And somebody leaned over and closed the door. It must have been her because both of your arms are now facing out towards the driver's side.
Yes.
He comes out, opens the door. And?
Immediately struck me in the face. I kind of turned a little more, and then he grabbed me by my shirt, and I have the evidence of the shirt. Basically, I was sitting like this, and he grabbed it, and he flipped me to the ground, and there's the hole in the shirt right there that proves that. Started kicking and stomping me. I was just laying on the ground, basically defenseless. Chipped my tooth. I have the medical records and everything. These are all the bills.
Is this a Brittany over here?
No. She
No.
Wasn't able to come. And
Well,
these
who
are
was this?
That's my girlfriend now. She can vouch for my pain and suffering. She wasn't actually there.
But she looks lovely.
And then these are the pictures. Those were taken by the police station. That was one extra. And if she wants to see this. This is a coat that got thrown on me after the incident. It's got my blood all over it. It's got blood on the back. It's got blood all up on here. And that was after it all happened. My face was totally cut open.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You call the police and you say, someone is in my car. Unless you knew it was Brittany and the plaintiff who had been dancing all night. Do you understand me?
No.
Well, that's too bad. Bird, do you understand me?
I understand you perfectly.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. William Stone says Floyd Galvin beat him up outside a bar.
Who took these photographs, sir?
The small ones were taken by Valpo Police Department. The bigger one was taken by my friend.
Mr. Galvin, did you know Brittany?
Yes, I did.
How did you know her?
I met her through a friend of one of my friends, and
how long had you known her?
3 weeks.
Did she come with you to the bar that night?
Yes, she did.
Well, why don't you let me finish my question before you answer. Had you picked her up?
Yes.
And had you gone out with her on any dates prior to this?
Yeah, I've been out with her plenty of times.
Okay. So she was no stranger to you?
No.
So you go out to your car and you see someone in your car.
Okay. It didn't happen that way. It was like they were dancing. Okay. They left. No problem. I walk out to my car. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I got tinted windows on the back of my car. I walk up to the car. I can only see him. So in Indiana, you can carry a gun. It's on your side. It's illegal, you know. And I didn't know what was going on. So I opened up the car door. Thought I seen something hit him. He fell out the car because he said he was sitting to his back to the door. So that's why he fell out the car. I did not drag him out the car. I hit him 2 more times and stopped. I got up. She jumped out the car on top of him.
He's lying.
No. She jumped out the car on top of him.
Yes.
I walked away. And then he wouldn't get off the ground. I walked away farther. Then he got up. Then he walked away. He was bleeding. I thought something happened. It was, you know, threatening my life. I didn't know.
What's threatening your life?
I didn't know. In Indiana, you can carry your gun.
I don't give a rat's behind what you can do.
Okay.
Sir, Are you telling me that you were in fear when you saw someone in your car?
Yes, of course.
Then why didn't you call the police? If in Indiana you can carry a gun and you thought somebody was in your car trying to steal your car, you call the police and you say, someone is in my car. Because in Indiana, since you can carry a gun, that might have been terrible if the person sitting in your car had a gun, right?
Yeah.
Unless you knew it was Brittany and the plaintiff who had been dancing all night.
I couldn't see her in the car. I thought it was...
Oh, no. I didn't say you could see her. Unless you knew or believed or thought that it was the plaintiff sitting in the car with the girl that you brought to the prom. You understand me?
No.
Well, that's too bad. Bird, do you understand me?
I understand you perfectly.
You may not like what I'm saying, sir.
No problem. Just no problem.
You have absolutely no right, because you're annoyed that the girl that you brought to the dance
I
left
wasn't-
with somebody else.
I wasn't annoyed.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
I just saw these pictures. You look pretty annoyed to me.
Pictures of what?
Pictures of his injuries.
You're walking out to your car at 3 o'clock in the morning and you see somebody in your car. You don't know what's going on.
If I walked out to a parking lot, sir, and saw someone around my car, I would go back to the place where I came from, call 911, and say, I think something is happening with my car. Someone is trying to steal my car. That's what I would do.
I didn't do it. I went and opened
You
the
didn't do
door
it?
and I thought I seen something and hey.
Oh, yeah, you're full of baloney.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Mr. Galvin, what you saw was somebody in the car. You saw also in the bar that the girl that you brought wasn't there and he wasn't there.
I have never seen him before.
No. You did see him before because you just told me that you saw them dancing together.
Yeah, I'm talking about...
That's what I'm saying. You saw them dancing together. You saw them dancing together and fooling around during the course of the evening. You turn around, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't see Brittany and you don't see the plaintiff. You walk out into your car and you see...
I see a guy in my car.
You see one or two people in your car.
No, one
Because
person.
as soon as you open up the car door, you have to see that there are two people in there, Mr. Galvin.
No, he said that he was sitting in they were on top of each other and his back was to the window, right?
Even madder. You're suing for $3,000, sir. That is both for your medical expenses and pain and suffering.
Right, that was the
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
You got it. Judgment for the plaintiff, $3,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. So, out the back, go to your right, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I didn't give him permission to go in the car or anything.
I didn't even know whose vehicle it was.
I thought he was trying to steal something.
Basically, everybody's going to see now that he's like a half-twit and what a moron he was on national television, so that's great.
I offered to pay his medical bills, everything, you know, before to the police, and he must have declined that too.
I think he learned a lesson.
And now the next case.
All parties on Sias versus Graham. Step forward, please.
55-year-old Asian arts instructor Ted Sias is suing 19-year-old carpet installer William Graham for assaulting him while riding his bike.
According to your complaint, Mr. Sias, you were riding your bike to work. What kind of work do you do?
I teach internal health arts in Huntington Beach.
In a school?
Yes, ma'am.
And a car that was being driven by one of these two young men
Mr. Graham.
somehow passed by you, and he shouted something out the window, which made you angry.
It startled me. It scared
Startled
me.
you.
Yes.
So you got angry.
Yes.
And what you did in response was to ride your bike on an overpass where you were, and when you saw his car passing under the underpass, you picked up a rock and threw it at his car.
Yes, ma'am, but it was actually a pebble, and I brought the approximate size that I dropped.
Pebble, rock, you threw a something at his car.
Yes.
That made Mr. Graham very angry,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And you got off the expressway to find him,
Yes, ma'am.
because you saw him do it.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a confrontation. And that's what this lawsuit is about, because you said that during the course of that confrontation, Mr. Graham injured you and broke your bike.
Yes.
So let's start out. You're pedaling along, going to work. His car comes alongside you, and what does he say to you?
It wasn't him. It was his passenger that screamed at me.
What did his passenger say?
I don't know. It was just a holler, a very loud holler. I wasn't.
Which startled you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what did you do?
Well, I about fell off my bike. Then I picked up this little pebble, and I was thinking about dropping it. And when they pulled around, then he gave me the birdie. That was it. That's all it took to send me the rest of the way. So I did drop it. I wasn't dropping the pebble to cause damage. I was dropping the pebble as more of an act of, you do this to me, I do this to you, but I wasn't striving for revenge. I lost my head.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything to you, sir, that involved any physical touching.
I think
his passenger
yes, ma'am.
said something to startle you.
I think it's an accumulation of years of writing and getting people throwing things at me and hollering at me. I guess that one time I've been tired. I was riding my bike for 12 miles that day. I just lost it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You see the passenger?
Yes, he was, ma'am.
Did you do that?
Stop!
Right there.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ted Sias says William Graham assaulted him while out riding his bike. William claims Ted threw a rock at his car.
What was the first thing that was said?
I asked him, ma'am, I said, why did you throw a rock in my car? He then got off his bike, and he says, well, you know, you screamed at me. And I'm like, who screamed at you?
Well,
you know,
it's clear he didn't scream at you.
We were...
Just a minute. He didn't scream at you.
Yes, ma'am, he didn't.
Somebody else did. Go ahead.
It could have been possible that we had been goofing around, laughing, whatever, you know, the case may be in the car, what you do with
Whatever, somebody in your car spooked him, right?
That must have happened somehow. It wasn't intentional.
Was he the passenger?
Yes, he was, ma'am.
Did you do that?
Oh,
Stop! Right there. Right where the finger is. Did you do that to the bike rider?
I was...
No, look at me.
I'm sorry. I was singing in the car, yelling, having a good time, not yelling at anyone out of the car, intentionally.
Did you realize you had startled him?
No.
Now sit down. Go ahead.
Okay, so then he pushes me once. I push his hand down. I say, don't touch me again. He pushes me again, push his hand down, and after I push his hand down the second time, he shove kicked me to my groin area. And I didn't do anything. Then I was going to call the cops. He got on his bike like he was going to leave. And I said, where are you going? And he said, oh, I'm leaving now, like that. And he's like, you're wasting my time. I said, yeah, thanks a lot. I just got my car painted. I just got my car painted, and he dropped the rock and chipped like on the roof of my car. And he says, well, now it just gives you something to do, doesn't it? He gets back off his bike, pushes me one more time. I push his hand down again, and then he kicked me harder in the same exact area, the same type of kick in the groin. And at that time, I grabbed his leg. He went to swing at me, and I hit him in the head, and then I hit him a couple more times. He fell over his bike, which was right behind him. Once he was on the ground, I held him down. This is all in a position where I had a broken collarbone at the time because I was in an accident maybe a month before at the most, and I had a cast on my hand from torn ligaments. So I was really in no position to be starting a fight.
What kind of accident? Car accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sayers, you want to tell me your version of the event, sir?
Basically, he's saying something to the effect that you're going to pay for it, you're going to pay for it, or you're going to apologize. I can't remember which one or both. And he kept trying to get closer to me, and I kept telling him to stay away. I said it numerous times. I did what's called a push kick towards his groin. It was not meant to cause any pain. He says, what was that?
But you did do that.
I did do that, yes, I did.
And he hadn't put his hands on you yet.
He was
No. He had not put his hands on you.
No, ma'am, not yet. I did what I could, which was non-lethal. I pushed towards his face to make him lean back to go away. I pushed towards his groin.
He didn't kill you either, Mr. Sayers. That's not lethal.
If you look at the picture, you'll see it's probably lethal. My face doesn't look too pretty. I've probably got a birthmark that'll last me the rest of my life. You want to...
Sure, I'll take a look.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's not lethal. Nasty, but not lethal.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You don't say anything in your complaint, Mr. Sayers, about your putting your hands on the defendant first. He's a young man, and very often people say, well, young kids, you know, they're going to lose their temper and they're going to get out of control. I think that it happens with men when they reach maybe age 50. You're not 50 yet, are you?
Nowhere near.
I know, they do have as sometimes what you describe as road rage. You went to the top of an overpass, you picked up a pebble. You say it was a very small pebble. It may have been, but certainly enough. If that falls on your car fast enough and shatters a windshield, that can cause you to lose control of the car, and it can cause you to go into a tree, another car, another person. It can cause very serious damage, injury, and can cause death. And then when he confronted you, when he stopped the car, which was his absolute right because he had done nothing to you, his partner over here maybe was singing too loud. Maybe he was trying to frighten you. Maybe he was acting like a jerk, which is possible, because I'm looking at him, and it's possible. But he didn't do anything to you. When he confronted you, instead of apologizing, you put your hands on him first, twice. And it looks to me, at the end of the day, you got the worst of it.
Obviously.
That's too bad. Your case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Brand new paint job, and the guy dropped a rock and chipped it.
I did no lethal action on this gentleman. He's the one who did lethal action on me.
I was just singing in the car. I didn't mean to scare anybody, startle anybody. I didn't think I was that bad of a singer.
Maybe they learned some lessons from this. They think they won something on me. I lost something, but I gained a lot of knowledge from it.
And now the next case.
All parties on Schmid versus Vanderham. Step forward, please.
21-year-old student Kelly Schmidt claims ex-boyfriend, 19-year-old student Josh Vanderham, owes her for half the cost of a Millennium getaway.
You folks were dating each other around the Millennium. According to your complaint, Ms. Schmidt, you arranged for a weekend
In Huntington Beach.
in Huntington Beach.
Yes.
And you put all of this, the hotel and stuff, on your credit card. You say there was an arrangement for him to repay you half of the cost of the trip.
Yes.
You broke up shortly thereafter. He hasn't paid you back.
Yes.
That's what this is about.
I wanted to do something really fun for New Year's, and I had just thought of doing this for the weekend, and so I called the hotel. And
Well, first, did you call him?
Yes, I called him and discussed it with him first, and said.
Well, tell me about it. Tell me
Well, I
about that
called him and I
discussion.
discussed it, and I said, you know, look, this would be a cool idea. You know, would you be interested in doing it? And he's like, yeah, that's cool. You know, I'm like, okay, well then I'll call in the hotel and I'll find out if, you know what's going on, how much it costs, and all that, and then I'll call and let you know the details. And so I called him back after I found out, and I told him, look, it's $1,000 for the weekend. They do have room, you know, but I'd totally love to do it as long as you'd be willing to pay me half. He said, yeah, let's do it. I'll pay you half. That's fine.
Did she call you and tell you about the weekend in Huntington Beach?
Yeah, she called me.
So tell me about the conversation.
She called me back and she said, you know, I really want to do something for the Millennium. You know, would you like to come with me and stay for the getaway?
Right.
And I said, sure, I would love to go. Basically, we never arranged for any payment or anything.
Well, how did you...
I paid for dinner that night when we went out to dinner, and then for drinks, it was an open bar, so we tipped the bartender several times throughout the course of the 2 days.
Well, did you think she was going to take you away for a 3-day holiday? Is that what you thought?
Well, I don't know. She was my girlfriend at the time, so I figured, you know, she was going to help me out, and we were going to spend a 2-day, you know, romantic little weekend.
It's not romantic when she's paying.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Sounds great. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Well, basically...
Not basically. Stop with the basically.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kelly Schmidt says former boyfriend Josh Vanderham owes her for half the cost of a Millennium getaway.
Did you discuss the cost?
Yes, we did, actually.
Okay, so let me hear about the discussion about the cost.
Shh.
I didn't ask you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked Mr. Vanderham.
Basically, she said it was $1,000, and she was going to put it on her credit card.
All right, Mr. Vanderham, we're not going to pull teeth here, sir.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you individual questions. Did she tell you what the room was, what the room cost?
Yes, it was $1,000.
And did she tell you what that included?
Yes, she did.
And you said, sounds great.
Sounds great. Sign me up.
Sounds great, sign me up.
Yeah.
Okay. Had you given her presents before?
Yes, we had Christmas before that.
So you gave her a present?
Yes.
What did you give her?
Several presents. Clothes.
Give me the big one.
Clothes. You know what? Actually, I don't really remember. It was clothes.
You went out and picked them out yourself?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And when you gave them to her, did you, what was it, a blouse or a shirt or something?
A dress. It was a couple items.
of things.
Probably.
Did you tell her where you purchased them?
Yes.
Did you tell her how much they cost?
No.
Why didn't you tell her how much they cost?
Because it was Christmas and...
Because it was a gift.
Yes.
Right. Now, what your claim is, Mr. Vanderham, is that she was making a gift to you of this Millennium weekend, right?
That's correct.
So when one makes a gift to somebody, usually they do not discuss the cost of the gift with that person. They say, Now you see where I'm going?
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I knew you'd see where I was going. You usually don't have a long conversation about what the room costs, what the meals are, that it includes entertainment, unless there is an expectation that you're going to be repaid. Because if you gave her a dress for Christmas, you wouldn't say, here, I bought you this dress for $149. Right? That would be tacky.
Yes.
It's the same kind of gift.
I hear you.
The same kind of gift. You hear me? All right, so the room was $500. So why are you suing him for $600?
Well, basically...
Not basically. Stop with the basically.
As far as the interest went on the credit card, it's about 12%, and the charges were incurred all the way in December. And
so you're charging for interest on your credit card?
Yes, and actually it was about $1,050 plus extra room charges and stuff. I have the credit card statement right here if you'd like to see it.
Now you say you paid for dinner, Mr. Vanderham. Was that a gift?
Yeah.
Basically.
Basically.
You like my basically.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What was the $200 for?
The $200 was for an extra. We had the witness and his girlfriend ended up staying with us in the room that weekend, and that was an extra $200, but they paid for that. They paid me money for that.
Is this the person who stayed in the room?
Yes, it is.
Is this your friend?
That's my best friend.
Still your best friend. So he's sitting on that side.
He was there.
I don't know.
What? Step up here. David!
Yes.
David what?
Pollard.
Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Good. David, you and your girlfriend went and spent the weekend with them?
Yes.
In Huntington Beach?
Yes.
And your tab was $200?
That's correct.
And this is your best friend?
Yes.
Didn't you think it was sort of fair to say, listen, if we have this room and the room's going to cost us a total of $1,200 for the four of us, that we should split that in half?
I asked him about the cost of the room.
You asked who about the cost?
She...
no, who did you ask about the cost, David?
I actually asked both of them.
Both of them in the same... They were there at the
on
same...
different phone calls. Kelly called me back and told me it would be $100 a person extra. And I said, well, you know, how much is the room? And she said, well, the room's a little over $1,000. And I said, well, is $100 then going to cover it? Do you want more? And she said, no, just, you know, pay for what extra fees they're going to charge us. And I said, okay, you know.
So she was a nice person.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Yes.
Before they even came to the picture, it was just going to be me and him splitting the entire cost. So I had already planned on just us agreeing to pay that much money. And like you said, they had offered. But, you know, I just told them that's fine. We've already, you know, taken care of it. We've discussed it. And that's how it's going to work. So.
Perfect. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He just gave me excuses. He wouldn't return my phone calls. He'd just be really irresponsible and negligent about it. And so this is what it came down to.
I felt it was very unfair. I never agreed to pay the money. Basically, she wanted to take me on the trip.
If you agree to do something, go through with it and be responsible.
37-year-old resort reservationist Kim Allen is suing ex-boyfriend, 39-year-old restaurant manager Thomas Andrews for a loan to pay his child support.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 77 on the calendar in the matter of Allen versus Andrews.
Thank you, Bert.
Quite welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Miss Allen, you and the defendant lived together for how long?
About 2 years.
And you have no children together?
No, we do not.
But you just resided in the same apartment?
Correct.
Okay. And according to your complaint, there came a time when Mr. Andrews had fallen behind in some child support payments to former mate, former spouse, ex-wife. He faced the potential of being incarcerated. It's sort of convoluted, but I gather that he couldn't ask his parents for money directly.
Correct.
So you made arrangements to borrow the $1,300 that he needed with the understanding and the promise to his parents that you would pay that debt back to them when you got your tax return.
Correct.
You say you got your tax return, you did pay them back the $1,300, you and the defendant went your separate ways, and you want the $1,300 back from him.
Correct.
And Mr. Andrews says that the money was joint. money that was paid back to his parents. He acknowledges that it was paid back to his parents, but it came out of a joint account. That's your defense, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not true.
When did you go to court for child support, sir?
3 of 98.
And how much did you owe in child support?
I owed, what I needed to pay was like $1,843.
What did you owe?
$2,300. $2,300.
And what were you told if you didn't come up with $1,800?
That I could possibly go to jail.
So what did you do?
I talked with, Kim and I went over and talked with my mom and dad.
So the two of you went over together?
Absolutely. We were in my attorney's office. We went and talked to my mom and dad about borrowing the money from them. We borrowed part of the money from them. We didn't borrow all the money from them because we had
$1,300.
$1,300, right?
Okay.
Right.
$1,300 from your parents.
Right.
Had you borrowed money from them before?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Often?
Not often. My mom and dad are not big on loaning money. They like for you to kind of make your own way.
Was there any discussion at that time of when they were going to be paid back?
Yes, that would be their first question. How and when are you going to pay me back?
And what was the discussion?
The discussion was we wrote them a check for part of it. They were to cash it on a certain date, and that...
Okay, let's go back.
Okay.
This is March of '98.
Yes, ma'am.
You wrote out a check to your parents.
Yes, ma'am.
Which I assume you have.
No, I
Cancel
don't.
check?
I have no check stuff. She has all that.
You have them?
I do.
And what was the date of the first payment to his parents?
That was on March 10th.
That's when the first payment was to be made to them.
That
They
was
could cash
when-
the check.
That was when I got my taxes back and the check was sent to them.
Let me see. Are you telling me that at the time you took out this, you borrowed $1,300, you did not in fact give them a check, as Mr. Andrews said?
No, we
stated?
did not.
Partial check.
No, we
Partial
did not.
check. For how much?
It was $500 and some odd dollars because you can see I have a $1,843 payment that was made on 3 of 98 to the child support service.
Listen to me, sir.
Okay.
That wasn't made to your parents. If you owed them $1,800, you borrowed $1,300 for your parents. You didn't make your parents a payment of $500. You made the government. You sent to the child collection unit $500.
No, I borrowed $1,843 from my mom and dad and sent my mom and dad a check for $500 and whatever odd dollars it was.
The check
if
that
I'm not
they
mistaken.
gave him, the pink copy at the top, is for $1,343, and that is what we borrowed from them. They had made the check out to him to pay to Alamance County Courthouse.
Right. My mom and dad gave me a check, and I went and got a counter check for it, a bank check for it.
Doesn't make any difference. They gave you $1,300. That's all. That's what they gave you. They didn't give you $1,800.
Okay.
So the $500, you didn't give them a payment for $500, which is exactly what I said, Mr. Andrews. You gave the court $1,800, $1,300 from your parents, and $500 from you.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Well, it's been so long ago, some of these money amounts are not quite...
Well, you've been living with this situation, sir. I've only been trying to understand for 3 minutes, and I got it.
I understand.
Okay, good. I'm glad you understand. So now we're down to $1,300. Now, the $1,300 was repaid on the 10th of March.
And that was out of his account, ma'am. It was not out of a joint account. That was out of his account.
How did this $1,343 get into your account, sir?
I would assume we had both put it in there.
Don't assume anything. Try to remember.
I'm sure she got her tax money back and put it back in there. Put it in there. Mm-hmm. She has held all my financial records. I have nothing.
I didn't hold them, ma'am.
If you look at who wrote that check, you'll see her handwriting.
No, that's yours.
Just a second.
Is it?
Joe, just a second. No, it's your handwriting.
It is? Okay. I haven't seen it. She kept it all.
Mr. Andrews, you said rather emphatically a moment ago that it wasn't your handwriting, that you remembered.
She usually wrote all the checks. She even wrote checks out of my account.
Do you understand what I just said
Oh,
to
I
you? You
understand.
said it's not my handwriting. She wrote the check.
Right.
That was said with a certain authority.
Okay. I understand.
Okay. So this money came out of your account just a few days later.
Right.
To pay back your parents.
Right.
It didn't come out of a joint account. It came out of your account.
Right.
Did you put the money there?
Don't know if I put any of it there, to be honest with you. It's been so long ago. I'm sure that when we talked to my mom and dad, we had a method of paying them back, and the method was...
Well, the method of paying them back was...
Tax money. Right, exactly.
Tax money.
Exactly.
Her tax money.
Right. She had definitely,
So why don't you owe her this money?
I have no idea. I don't think I owe her any money.
Well, explain that to me. I mean, your answer, Mr. Andrews, says that the money was paid from a joint. Let me try to.
That was best of my recollection. She's had
That doesn't say to the best of your recollection
Okay,
here.
I
It
understand.
says, my parents loaned Kim and I the money to pay my child support payments.
Right.
We paid them back around a month later from our joint bank account.
This is not the first loan that Kim and I have had with my parents. And
That-
we've
this is
had
the
loans
only
with-
loan. Just a
we've
second.
had loan-
ma'am.
This is the only loan I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it was.
This is the only loan that's being sued for,
Right.
and your parents aren't suing you. They got their money back.
Right. Right.
So what you're telling me now, Mr. Andrews, after some dancing around, is that the money was in fact put in your account by the plaintiff to pay back your parents, and it was put there from her tax return.
I'm sure it was.
Good. Now, did you pay her back?
Not directly in a $1,300 check. I worked every day, check every week.
So
you know,
did
I was
I,
the
ma'am.
breadwinner. You know.
So, no.
I brought the money
I
in the
brought home-
household.
Just a second.
You know. She didn't want me to go to jail because she wanted to make sure somebody was there to support her.
Well, were you working during that time? Let me ask you this question, Mr. Andrews. If she was getting a tax refund, that means she was employed.
I have 2 children.
Just a second. That means she was employed
Right.
and earning money,
Right.
so that you weren't supporting her.
Not totally.
Even
And
if he wasn't
certainly,
there.
sir, she had more money than you did because you fell behind in your child support payments, so you couldn't even keep up your primary obligation, which is support your children.
Right. My actual child support was, there was an order to modify that. The original order that was put in was incorrect. I was paying for children that weren't mine, and it was overpayment, underpayment.
What do you mean you were
it
paying
was-
for children that weren't yours?
The first order that I had was for a child that wasn't mine. I was paying child support for 2 children and only had 1 child.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
It wasn't a stranger that they picked out of a bucket
No.
and said, Mr. Andrews, you're going to pay for this child. So who is this child?
Well, actually, my wife had this child while we were still married, but it was another man's child.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kim Allen is suing former boyfriend, Thomas Andrews, for a loan to pay his child support. He says he paid it back.
Were you paying for 2 children, sir, because both of those children were receiving welfare?
No.
Well, the only way you can pay for a child that's not yours, in most jurisdictions in this country, is if you're married to their mother and you are their step-parent, and there isn't another deep pocket to go after, so they say as a step-parent you are responsible for paying support, at least to the amount that the citizens are paying for that child support.
Right.
So is this child that you say, I find this interesting, is the child that is not yours a child that is totally unknown to you?
No, not unknown to me. No,
It wasn't a stranger that they picked out of a bucket
No.
and said, Mr. Andrews, you're going to pay for this child.
No.
So who is this child?
That child was my ex-wife's child.
Right. So
Right,
you were
exactly.
the stepfather of that child.
For about 3, yes, exactly.
Right. And as the stepfather of that child, there was a time when those 2 children were receiving public assistance.
No, well, I get you, yes, sure.
And therefore, the state was pursuing you for child support for both of those children. While the relationship of step-parent, stepchild existed until you were divorced.
Well, actually, my wife had this child while we were still married, but it was another man's child.
Oh, well, that makes it even more interesting. Still in all, there must have been welfare involved.
Right.
If you're going to be a good judge in the family court, you got to learn one thing. It's not like any other business. You got to follow the money.
Right.
You owe $1,300, judgment for the plaintiff.
Thank you, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I lent him that money, and he promised me he'd pay me back, and it was my money to begin with because I earned it.
I do not believe I owe her any money at all. I have put money in that relationship to ends meet, and I guess hopefully this will be finished. She has been pursuing me for money, and hopefully this will be the last straw.
I called him a few times, and first time he said he had to think about it. Second time he said he wasn't going to. So that was my money, and I was going to get it.
She just keeps digging for money. I've got receipts here where she dug for money last year. Hopefully this will put a stop to it.
girls out there, women out there, don't just give your money to any man.
Bring it to the diva of truth and justice, Judge Judy.
That's right.
48-year-old teacher's assistant Shirley Wilson is suing former friend, 27-year-old student Frances Pierce, for the cost of caring for Frances's baby for 2 years.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 108 on the calendar in the matter of Wilson versus Pierce. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Miss Wilson, according to what I've read, you knew the defendant through a niece of yours.
Yes.
The defendant had 2 children, and she found herself pregnant.
Yes.
And had very little money. So far correct?
No, ma'am.
Had a lot of responsibility.
Yes, ma'am. But it was financial responsibility.
And a decision was made between the 2 of you that you would take the baby, right?
Yes, yes.
According to you, you kept the baby for 2 years.
Yes.
Little girl?
Yes.
Raised her in your home.
Yes.
With the expectation that you were going to be keeping her.
Yes.
And then you had to register her for daycare. You notified the state that her survivor's benefits, because her father was deceased.
Yes, her father was deceased.
Should be transferred to you.
Yes.
And that when Miss Pierce found out that you had done that, she came and took the baby back.
Yes.
And you want to be compensated for the 2 years that you supported this child. That's what your lawsuit is about.
Yes.
Right?
It is correct, Judge Judy.
Miss Pierce, according to you, nothing could be farther from the truth. Miss Wilson did not raise this child. The child lived with you always.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Miss Wilson, during what stage of the pregnancy did you make arrangements with Miss Pierce to take the baby?
At delivery.
At delivery?
At delivery.
Were you in the hospital when the baby was born?
Yes, I was.
Do you have any other children?
Yes, I have 6 other kids.
Are they all grown?
No.
How old are they?
Starting from 4 to 14.
Could you tell me why you chose to take on this additional responsibility?
Because I love kids, and the 6 that I have, it's not biological mine, and
they're not biologically yours.
No, not biologically.
Are they adopted children?
No, just some kids are keeping until their parents can get on their feet and they come and pick them up.
Do you work?
Yes, I work for the Wake County Public Schools.
Who takes care of these children when you're working?
Daycare.
Do you get any assistance from the state for them?
No, because I don't have legal custody of them.
And how long has the 14-year-old been with you?
Oh, she was 6 weeks old.
Is that you? Step up here.
That's my daughter, Tabitha.
Tell me your first name.
Tabitha.
Tabitha. Do you see your biological parents? Mm-hmm. You do?
Every other week.
Do you go to their house?
Mm-hmm.
You stay with them for a weekend?
Yes, sometimes.
But you've been living with Miss Wilson since you're a baby.
Mm-hmm.
She take good care of you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do in school?
Good.
Do you help take care of the younger ones?
Mm-hmm. I love them to death. I love little children.
Do you know Miss Pierce's baby?
Yes, ma'am.
What's her name?
Diamond.
Do you remember when Diamond came to live with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about that.
She had called us to come to the doctor because she was about to deliver Diamond. So I went with my mom, woke me up, we got dressed, and we went to the hospital. Frances told the doctors to hand her over to my mom when she came out, and my mom walked around and held her, and she smiled at me and my mom. And then that's when they put her in a little bed, and then we all went home. Then 2 weeks later, she called for us to come and get Diamond.
Did Diamond live in your house all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Have a seat. You got no support from this child at all during the time she was with you?
No, I didn't. Not at all.
And tell me what happened after 2 years, Miss Wilson.
I told Francie that I need to put Diamond into...
This is Francie.
This is Francis. I need to put Diamond in daycare, and I needed $90 to do so. And, well, that didn't work. So I went down to Social Security, and filed for Diamond's SSI to come to where Diamond lived, which is my address. I had that done, and then I went back home. In about 2 hours, I called Frances and told her what I had done, and if she rejected, I wouldn't get it, but if she didn't, I would get it for Diamond. And she said, no, you can't, because this is what I need over here. But I said, well, Diamond don't live over there. Diamond lives here. So I'd say an hour, 2 hours, the Raleigh police come to pick her up. That was April the 28th this year, 2000. And I haven't seen her since then, but I want to see my baby. That's my daughter. I mean, she had her, and I love this baby. I want to see the baby. I want to see her.
Miss Wilson, what do you do for the school system?
I'm a teacher's assistant.
You don't have any court papers for any of your children that are living with you?
No, no court papers, no legal documents.
No guardianship papers?
No.
Tell me why, Miss Wilson. You are not an unintelligent woman. You know that if you have children living with you, for instance, if they need to go to the doctor, and you have to sign a consent form for the doctor to take care of them, who signs that form?
I do. I signed the form.
But you don't have the legal right to sign the form unless you have these papers for your kids. Mm-hmm. Certainly, this young lady has been with you for all of her life. You are her mother in every real sense of the word. But you should have some papers for her. There are ways that you can get assistance for these children to make your life a little more comfortable.
Judge Judy, the 5 kids, the 6 that I have, their mom, they cooperate with me. And when we correspond together, they sign papers, they give me money for them. And that's one reason why, because I didn't want to sign the legal papers for them, because they cooperate. We would talk, and we just got along great. But when it comes down to Miss Frances, we just couldn't communicate. And I love my daughter. That's my daughter.
Well, Miss Wilson, if she did live with you for that 2-year period, and she did not live with her mother, and if you want to fight for custody of her, I believe that you have the right to do that. I can't tell you what the outcome of that case would be, Miss Wilson, but there are certain rules with regard to parenting. You cannot leave your child with someone else for 2 years and just decide to take her back. The court, however, Miss Wilson, will look into your current situation with the other children that you have in your house, and they're going to scratch their heads like I am and say, listen, either this woman should be nominated for sainthood or there's something wrong with her. I have a feeling it's the former rather than the latter, because it seems that you have a working relationship that most courts can't work out for at least 14 years with regard to having a nice relationship with your biological parents, but knowing that you have a secure, stable home with you.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
At the time, Diamond's father was going through some problems himself. He was dealing with drugs, staying in and out of prison.
I have a sense that you are struggling with these 3 kids.
I am.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shirley Wilson is suing former friend, 27-year-old Frances Pierce, for the cost of caring for Frances' baby.
All right, Miss Pierce, let's hear your side of the story.
Yes, ma'am. I was introduced to Miss Wilson. I was 6.5 months pregnant. At the time, Diamond's father was going through some problems himself. He was dealing with drugs, staying in and out of prison. And at that time, I just moved. I was going through a lot of stress. I found out I was pregnant. I didn't go get any prenatal care until I was 6.5 months pregnant, because I didn't want to realize that I was actually having another child, just getting myself back on my feet, getting in good, doing good. I said, I don't really want to have this baby. I don't want to abort, okay? I want to find another situation. We sat down, we talked. She'd come to my house. I would go visit her. We talked about maybe giving up for an adoption. I said, well, okay, right now, in the situation I'm in, I can't deal with her father. I know I'm not going to get any help. I'm just getting off of assistance, and my goal is to keep going. I don't want assistance anymore.
Okay, but you had already talked to Miss Wilson with the idea that she would adopt your baby.
Yes, ma'am. But
okay.
She knew, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, then when Miss Wilson came up, that's true, her and the daughter came up, and Diamond was born. She did hail Diamond. They talked or whatever. After that, I did not see Miss Wilson anymore till Diamond was like maybe 3.5 weeks old. She did not keep Diamond. Diamond went with Felicia Wilson and her mother. Social service paid them to keep them, because at that time I was working at Winn-Dixie and I was cleaning buildings at night.
What happened after 3 weeks, Miss Pierce?
I went to work. I went back to work.
And
started
who
back
took Diamond after 3 weeks?
She stayed in my home, but Felicia Wilson and her mother, social service paid them to keep her while I worked.
Well, tell me under what circumstances she started to stay with Miss Wilson.
Miss Wilson came by and said her school donated a whole bunch of clothes and stuff for Diamond, brand new clothes. She said, Francis, I understand the situation you're in. She said, we'll sit down and talk about it. Right now it's probably not the right time to talk about it. She said, but I will agree to let Diamond stay in my home if you need it. I said, well, right now I don't really need her to stay overnight. I just need help with daycare until they will approve me to get it, because at that time my assistance was ran out. I wouldn't even be able to apply for any more. When Diamond got 9 months old, she said, I'm attached to her and I cannot let her go. If we want to do it another way, we can do it. If you don't want to do it the legal way. And I told her I wouldn't do it the legal way because I felt guilty with myself. I can't give her up like that because she got sisters and brothers, and it will break their heart when she leaves to go over there for the weekend or during the day. They run to her. They want to go with Shirley. Shirley has taken them with her, and she has babysitted my other 2 kids while I work, and I work down the street from her apartment, cleaning. She would come and get my kids. When I get off work, I would go back up the street to get them. I wouldn't apply for child care. They approved me child care for all of my kids under the agreement if I went back and got some trade in school. I did. Went to CET and graduated in medical billing.
Where was Diamond living from the time she was 9 months old?
Off and on between both of our houses during the weekend. She stayed with me.
You don't mean during the weekend?
During the week, Diamond stayed in my home. If she wasn't there babysitting with them, she stayed because Ms. Wilson worked at school. She's a janitor at Wake County. She worked, so how could she keep her in her home when the other kids are in school?
Okay. You have things that you want to show me?
Yes, I have. When I first put Diamond in daycare, I have the daycare papers each day coming home telling me about. I also have Diamond's birth certificate. I have Diamond from birth to 2 years old in pictures.
Let me see.
Judge Judy, the papers she has is the papers when a kid come home from school, it's in the bag. They will say, we need Pampers,
well,
we need wipes.
I understand exactly what it is.
Okay.
I have grandchildren.
And I have
go
the
to
same
daycare.
papers she has.
Well, let me see them.
I have an application for when I went in.
No, show me the bag.
No, I don't. It's a bag. It's a book. You know, your bag.
I understand that. Show me the stuff that came out of the bag that says you picked her up from daycare.
I don't have. She ran on a van. She rode on a van. Transportation was provided for Diamond in her cubby bag. Everything wherever they say her daily. She did this today. She ate this today. We need Pampers. We need wipes.
Yeah, I know that.
Please send. No one had to sign for that. That was just a daily routine for them.
I understand that, but she has it in her possession.
Because when she would call and tell Mr. Mills, I'm coming to pick Diamond up, he would give her the whole bag with the Pampers and everything.
So she came to pick the child.
Yeah, in the evening, yes.
She came to pick the child up in the evening.
Yes, ma'am. After she would call me.
Just a second. If she was picking her up in the evening, that suggests to me that she slept at her house.
Sometimes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She went back and had Child Protective Service put on me, Social Security. They cut my daughter's benefit. I could not afford to pay her daycare. They was not only just helping her go to daycare, they was helping my other 2 kids.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Shirley Wilson claims 27-year-old mother, Frances Pierce, owes her for 2 years of child care.
So she slept at her house, according to these papers, at least half the time.
No, ma'am.
You know, according to these papers, if she were picking her up in the evening.
Judge Judy, can I explain something?
Yeah.
The way that it works in Raleigh, if I'm at work, I have to sign a statement stating who's authorized to release my kids off the van, which at that time was Mr. Napoleon Mills, was my fiancé.
He's not your fiancé anymore?
No, ma'am. He, at that time, had to work himself. So she will call me and say, Francis, I'm going to come by. I will call Napoleon. Shirley's coming by. Just give her the bag. Everything is in the bag.
Okay, Miss Pierce, right now we have the following problem. We have a problem with Miss Wilson and your daughter Diamond, who were clearly attached to each other, not seeing each other since April 28th. For whatever reason, for whatever anger you may have with each other.
None. I don't have any anger towards her.
Great. You got attached, she got attached. There was a time in the beginning that you were going to let her adopt this child.
Yes, ma'am.
She, even for a short period of time, was laboring under that assumption until you felt as if you couldn't do it legally, according to you, but you would do it in spirit, because she could come and take her whenever she wanted to, and she could be as an involved parent as she wished. So she was really doing a good thing, because you were at a stress time. But right now your daughter has an attachment to her, and it's not the right thing for her not to see her. It's not the right thing.
I understand that. Okay. It was just the fact that I didn't like the procedures. After I told her no, she went back and had Child Protective Service put on me, Social Security. They cut my daughter's benefit. I could not afford to pay her daycare. If she didn't go, they was not only just helping her go to daycare, they was helping my other 2 kids. When they take one out, that means the other 2 come out. That means I have to stop working. I got to depend on other people. I explained that to her. I had to go to legal aid, get lawyers and things. Okay. I mean, I understand what she's doing. I have no problem with her seeing Diamond. Diamond loves her to death, but I just did not like the fact that she did not ask me for $90. I paid $191. So giving her $90 ain't no big thing to me. But why should I give it to her when she worked the same time I do?
You have no problem with Diamond spending some time with Miss Wilson
during the day, not overnight.
Okay?
Okay, that's fine. Great.
All right. Now, are you going to be able to work out informally Diamond spending, say, the weekends at Miss Wilson's house?
The weekends. Her biological grandmother has her for the weekends, on the weekends, because they don't have no bond since her father's been dead.
So you mean just recently she's been spending time with her biological grandmother?
Yes, ma'am, she has.
Judge, she don't know her biological grandmother.
That's why she's spending time with her grandmother. Okay. Because her father and his mother never got along. She's going through a thing herself. She's not going to live too long. And I feel my commitment to her is to let her at least bond with her biological. I don't have a problem with her seeing her. She knows her she knows her biological grandmother. She took her down to her biological grandmother's house to visit her.
Miss Pierce, I have a sense that you are struggling, doing well, but struggling with these 3 kids. Because if Diamond's biological grandmother didn't bond with her because she didn't see her for 2 years, and now Diamond is not with Miss Wilson on the weekends, so you really needed somebody else to fill in. So you're getting, so the biological grandmother is a very good vehicle to fill in. That's not right for Diamond.
No, that's not the way it was.
That's not right for Diamond. Well, that's pretty much what you said. She said she hasn't bonded with her biological grandmother, so now she's doing it.
Because of her father.
Well, how long is her father dead?
He's been dead for 2 years.
He's been dead for 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So for the last 2 years, she hasn't been seeing Diamond every weekend.
No, she's been seeing Diamond off and on. Ms. Wilson set it up to her.
Off and on.
Yes, ma'am.
Not every weekend.
No, ma'am.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
So you make arrangements with Miss Wilson. Do it. Because I have a sense that if she believes that Diamond is being well taken care of.
I don't, Judge.
Well, if you don't, then you have to do something, Miss Wilson.
Okay.
If you don't, then I've told you what you have to do.
Okay, I'll do that.
If you think that this child is being shifted around from place to place because Miss Pierce is really overwhelmed, you have a responsibility to this child. And your responsibility is to proceed for the first time, at least, in a legal, formal way.
Okay.
You have to do that. But as far as this case is concerned, you did not have a formal arrangement with her for support for Diamond. So you're going to be unsuccessful. She didn't have any money anyway. The problem is, if you're going to proceed in a legal fashion by going to court, there is going to be a battle. Maybe, maybe not. If you are not going to proceed in a formal legal way, but want to continue to see her when her mother says that you can, then you have to maintain a good relationship with her. Okay. You understand?
Yes.
You have any questions at all?
Yep. No, I don't.
Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Good. Good luck to you all. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Well, I thought it went good. Judge Judy tried the case real good, but I will go for legal custody of the daughter, my daughter.
To be honest with you, I think it's just money. Just money. But that's my child. She's been living with me. She's going to continue to live with me. I'm raising her just with her sister and brother, and that's exactly where she's going to stay.
This child, it's just like I birthed this child. I love this child. Raised her, kept her safe. I love this child, and I'll go hire court for her.
Make sure if you're struggling, find somebody else that you really can depend and trust in.
29-year-old machinist Daniel McMahon is suing his former live-in girlfriend, 34-year-old store manager Michelle McCartney, for half the deposit on an apartment and the return of his furniture. Michelle is countersuing for Daniel's share of their living expenses.
Order. All rise.
Your Honor, this is case number 206 on the calendar in the matter of McMahon versus McCarthy. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have seats, please.
Mr. McMahon, according to the complaint that I read, you and the defendant leased an apartment to live together. When you moved into the apartment, you put down half the security deposit. You also purchased some old furniture together. When you separated, you did not receive your security deposit back, nor the value of half the furniture that you purchased. That's what you want.
That's
right?
Correct, Your Honor.
The defendant says this is pretty much a joke because you really owe her money and she has a counterclaim.
Mm-hmm.
When did you lease this apartment?
I believe it was in July of '98, June or July.
And how long did you live together?
On and off for probably a year and a half.
When did you finally separate?
About probably 5 months ago, permanently.
And how long did you actually live in the apartment?
I actually lived in the apartment full-time for approximately 2 months before I got thrown out the first time.
And then you moved back?
And then I moved back.
Well, so let's have all the months together that you actually lived there.
Probably 4 months straight, on and off for probably a year and a half.
And how much was your security deposit that you put down?
$150.
Now, tell me about this furniture that you purchased together.
First, we bought a washer and dryer. I paid $75. She paid $75.
Okay. What's next?
The next is the furniture, which her aunt was selling, and again, we each paid $75 for the furniture.
We did not.
You'll have your
That's
chance.
wrong, Your Honor.
You'll have your chance. So that is $275 and $150, $425. How did you pay your half of the rent, which comes to her counterclaim?
With a check.
With checks?
I wrote my checks out to her.
Let me see them.
I don't have them. She packed all my stuff up.
He packed it all himself.
Mr. McMahon.
That's not true.
See, the problem is, she says that you lived together a total of 6 months. You say 4 months. The defendant says that you only paid rent for 2 of those months.
That is correct. But the only reason I paid for the first 2 months because I lived there full time. She threw me out. I had to go move into a whole other place. And we were broken up. We started seeing each other again, and I had a separate residence.
But then you moved back in, even according to you.
Right, okay.
Sir, listen to me. Then you moved back in, at least according to you, for another 2 months on an apartment where you had a lease.
Right.
And you did not pay rent for those 2 months.
Yes, I did.
No, he didn't.
No, you just told me you didn't pay rent for those 2 months. You said you only paid rent for 2 months.
I wasn't living there full time. I was only spending 2 nights out of the week there. I already moved out into a whole other place.
No, Mr. McMahon, now you're making that up as you're going along. You just said to me, a moment ago, of the year and a half that you were together, you lived there 4 months, but you only paid rent for 2 months out of the 4.
No, while I was there, if I stayed there for a full month, I would pay for half of that month. If I only spent
That's not what you just told me.
Well, excuse me, Your Honor. I'm a little confused.
Well, let's not get confused, sir.
But I went and got a separate residence, and then we started dating again. I would spend the weekend over there and then go back during the week to my own residence.
He never got his own residence until after the second time I threw him out. He lived with his father after the first time.
Okay, let's talk about the expenses that you say he owes you, Miss McCarthy. Let me hear.
Well, Your Honor, most of what he has said was correct. He was there May and June. I found he was cheating on me and I threw him out. We reconciled and he moved back in October, and he was there October, November, and December, and it was shortly after Christmas, 1998, or maybe even after the first of the year, where I threw him out for the second time. He was coming up with all these excuses why he couldn't help me out with the rent, and never paid anything. The day I threw him out, I went to do some laundry, and he had a bad habit of keeping his, papers in his pants. I would check his pockets for papers, and I found a receipt for some car stereo equipment that he purchased the day before. And that's when all heck broke loose, and I threw him out.
Why?
Because he kept claiming that he had no money to help me out. You know, he was getting speeding tickets. He was paying for the speeding tickets. He bought $1,000 rims for this Mustang that he owned. The heat would be up to 80 degrees, and he wasn't even there.
All right. So now, I got it.
I was on the lease, though. I'm entitled to turn my own heat up.
Just a second.
But he wasn't paying for it.
I got it. I understand the whole scenario. Now, my next question to both of you is, clearly, according to you, October, November, and December of 1998 is when you, in December is when you threw him out ultimately?
Yeah, it was a little after Christmas, maybe even after the first of the year.
Okay. And did he ever move back in?
No.
Why haven't you sued him for the amounts that you claim he owes you?
Well, initially, Your Honor, we got back together around Valentine's Day in 1999.
So you were back together?
Yes, we did. We never moved. He never moved back in. I still live there today.
But in February of 1999, you sort of got back together. How?
He invited me to dinner, bought me a couple dozen roses, and schmoozed his way back in like he always did.
All right. And how long did that schmoozing last?
On and off for about a year. We had a verbal agreement in between all this because he was upset about the furniture. He threatened to cut it up if he had to in order for him to get his half of it. And once we did get back together, we made a verbal agreement that I was to keep the furniture in my apartment because he hadn't helped me for those 3 months. And that was well and good for us.
Made that agreement.
And all of a sudden I get this lawsuit, and so I said, well, the heck with it. I'm going to just get my money that he owes me.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear. So you were prepared to say, forget it,
yes, I was.
On. Now, Mr. McMahon, I'm going to ask you the same question, sir. What took you so long to file this lawsuit?
We got engaged.
Yes.
She wanted me to move back in. I said, no, not until some issues are resolved.
And when did that engagement terminate?
On my birthday.
What date?
January 30th. I wasn't just going to jump into a lawsuit until I had some time to deal with what I was feeling.
You should have jumped into the lawsuit a year and a half ago.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right.
You're absolutely right. If you believe that she honestly owed you this money, half of a washer and dryer for $75 and a lot of furniture for $75.
It's not the money. It's got nothing to do with the money.
So what does it have to do with?
Your Honor, we had a 3-bedroom apartment. Out of all 3, each bedroom had a closet. I had a quarter of one closet in the master bedroom.
So does my husband.
And I had two,
and let me tell you, he's a happy man.
And I had 2 drawers. I had 2 drawers. I couldn't even put my clothes in there.
He has 2 drawers. Men are lucky if they have a quarter of a closet. They have 1 drawer.
And another thing.
Women need more drawers.
And another thing.
And more closet space.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She took over the whole apartment.
That's what ladies do. They make a nest.
What about me?
My husband knows he can decorate anything in his quarter of the closet.
I didn't get nothing.
Period.
And later today,
he shove-kicked me to my groin area, and I didn't do anything.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Daniel McMahon says ex-girlfriend Michelle McCartney won't return his furniture or his share of the deposit on their apartment.
Have you ever been married?
No.
That's a very good lesson I'm going to teach you. Don't expect more than a quarter of a closet. Right? If you expect more, never get married.
Okay, and another thing, January 30th, which was my birthday, which was one of the last big
more than
fights.
A quarter of a closet?
A quarter of a closet's ridiculous.
I've been married for 13 years.
Yeah.
I don't even have a quarter of a closet.
The whole apartment had her family all over the wall. I couldn't put any. I had no entity in there at all.
You mean you couldn't have a picture of your mother or your grandmother up?
The walls were full. I couldn't do nothing.
Mr. McMahon.
I'm serious. She took over the whole apartment.
Mr. McMahon.
I had no rights and nothing.
That's what ladies do. They make a nest.
We need. There should be a little bit of compromise.
Let me explain
though,
something to you. That's what happens. They make a nest. Right?
What about me?
My husband knows he can decorate anything in his quarter of the closet.
I didn't get nothing.
Period.
I had to step over.
Don't move a lamp.
I had to step over shoes to get to my quarter of the closet.
Get over
her
it.
shoes.
Listen to me. Your lawsuit, Mr. McMahon, is nonsense. And so is your counterclaim. Nonsense. 2.5 years ago, you started a relationship. You moved into an apartment together. It didn't work out. Your entire investment was at most $425, which includes $150 for some old furniture and an old washer and dryer. How many times did you use the washer and dryer? I want you to think very carefully. How many times did you take clothes, like sheets and towels, from the bathroom and from the beds, take them, put them in the washing machine, wait till it was finished, take it out, put it in the dryer, and fold it up? How many times did you do that?
Plenty of times. If I wasn't being thrown out that week, I was doing laundry.
If you weren't being thrown, you were doing laundry?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I used to do her work clothes for her. Everything else.
He was doing the laundry?
Some.
He was doing
few and far between. I was mostly doing all of our laundry. But yes, it was used for his clothes, which he had.
I didn't ask you it was used for his clothes. I'm talking about sheets and towels and stripping the beds. And
oh, I did all that. I could hardly even get him to make the bed, never mind strip it.
I'm talking about stripping the beds and putting the sheets in and putting the sheets back on the bed. Who did that?
I did all that.
You did that?
Yeah.
Well, you were honest about the other thing. He did do his own work clothes. Who did the cleaning in the apartment?
I did everything. I did everything, Your Honor.
Like what? I mean, who scrubbed the bathroom floor? Who scrubbed the
did.
kitchen floor?
I did. I wouldn't even let him do the dishes because he would do them in a half-mannered way and they would be all greasy, so I'd have to redo them anyway. That was his lame excuse for not being able to do anything because he didn't know how.
It's called learned helplessness. You do it wrong so nobody asks you to do it again.
That's not
Mr.
true at all.
McMahon, is it accurate that the housework was done by the defendant?
You know what? I didn't spend enough time in that apartment to clean anything. If you want the real deal.
You spent some time there, sir. According to you, you spent a couple of months there straight. And in addition to the couple of months there straight, 2 or 3 days a week when you were going to your own place. So you were there long enough to dirty the kitchen, dirty the bathroom, dirty the tub, dirty all those things.
If I dirtied something, I cleaned it.
That's done. I've heard that before. Mr. McMahon, your lawsuit is nonsense, and so is your counterclaim. They're both dismissed. Get over it.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
One of us was obligated to continue paying that lease, and I did, and I have been paying it ever since. He paid 2 months, and he was on a lease for a year.
He wanted me to pay it while I was living in.
Oh, well.
I didn't get treated fair in the relationship from Jump Street, and you know, I got taken advantage of.
Cindy Sullivan is suing fellow motorist advertising strategist Anthony Nico Van Prague for damaging her car in a fit of road rage. Nico is countersuing, claiming Cindy shoved him off his motorcycle.
Yeah, this is case number 20 on the calendar in the matter of Sullivan versus Van Prague. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
I have a claim, Officer Byrd, and I have a counterclaim. And these two people were involved in an incident of road rage. Each one of them got a little out of hand. So Miss Sullivan is suing the defendant for damage she says he did to her car when he kicked her car with a boot, I assume, that boot. And then for having her falsely arrested for assault. Mr. Van Prague says she did in fact assault him. He is suing her for that. And he's also suing her for damage she did to his motorcycle. When she pushed him off the motorcycle, he lost control of it and it was damaged. They're going to try to explain to me by the use of these charts why each of them was right. You were driving your car, Miss Sullivan. You were coming from where? Show me.
I was coming from here and was stopped at the stoplight there.
Stopped at a stoplight. And then according to what I sort of put together in your complaint, you got a phone call.
Yes.
While you were stopped at the stoplight.
Correct.
And that phone call said that somebody you knew was taken to the hospital. You had to change direction.
Correct. Later on down the road.
Now, show me where you had to go after you got this phone call.
The phone call was complete before I moved my car. The light was red. I was in this lane. I was going to have to be in number 2 lane later down the road because I did not want to get on the freeway. I wanted to go straight to the hospital. There's quite a bit of traffic, so I knew it was going to take me quite a while to get over, so I put my turn signal on. You have to keep this clear. And there was congestion all over, so when the light turned green, there was one other car in front of me. It proceeded through when it was safe and could clear the intersection. I slowly started to go through. I accelerated when I see I could make it through the intersection. Just as I entered the intersection, I flashed by my driver's side and then cut in front of me, right about here where the median is.
Okay. So what did you do?
I flashed my lights at him, kind of like to say...
Just a minute.
Yes?
He passed you.
Correct.
Safely passed you. Didn't hit you.
Correct.
And you could have just kept on going and meandered over to the right.
Correct.
But you chose to flash your brights at him.
Correct.
In an act of road rage.
If you want to interpret that way?
Well, that's what it is.
Okay.
You flashed your lights on, hoping to annoy him, because he, according to you, went around you too fast and cut in front of you.
There is not a lane of traffic where he passed me.
What happened next?
Well, I proceeded, someone let me in, so after I made it through the intersection, I made it into the number 2 lane.
Good.
Traffic was stopped. My car wasn't completely in the number 2 lane. It was kind of like at an angle, but I was completely in the number 2 lane.
Okay. What happened next?
Traffic was stopped. I had an SUV next to me. I saw the headlight of the gentleman's motorcycle come out from behind the SUV, so I assumed he was going to go between the two of us, as many motorcycles do. And then I heard and felt something hit my car.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately got out because I figured he hit my car trying to go between us. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?"
You didn't say hell.
Yes, I said, hell.
No, it's not even what you say here, you said to him. What are you doing? Okay, you said, what are you doing?
Well, I didn't say I used profanity, as we both did. He started yelling at me, saying I tried to kill him. He said he kicked my car to get my attention. Mm-hmm. And that he yelled that I tried to kill him And I said, no, you're the one that did a evasive move in traffic through the intersection and cutting in front of me. You're the one that could have caused hurt. Okay? So words continued to go, just yelling back and forth. All I could see was his eyes and his mouth. He had a helmet on. And I saw something in his eye, and his whole body in the motorcycle came forward. And I just had a split reaction to defend myself. I put my hands out in front of me, extended my arms, and
you pushed
backed
him.
up. Correct.
Pushed him.
Correct.
Okay, and what happened when you pushed him?
He jumped off the bike.
Okay.
As I'm backing away, he went to lay the bike down. He had his hand on the handle, the grip, and as he laid it down, it kind of spun a little bit. It revved up. I saw the back tire turn. It made contact with the ground. The bike rotated once, twice. He reached back, and I guess it's the throttle or whatever, and stopped from revving. He started jumping around, yelling and screaming, and I continued to proceed to my car, backing up, got into my car. He yelled about calling the police. I said, go right ahead, and I'm going to. I wanted to leave the scene because I felt unsafe. I didn't know what he was going to do.
Roy Sullivan, why did you get out of your car in the first place?
It's just reaction. I thought he hit my car. It was an accident. We need to get out and exchange information. I didn't know he did it aggressively.
Well, once you realized what it was, why didn't you quickly get back into your car instead of standing out there in the street with traffic all around you, screaming and yelling at him?
I don't know. I guess I wanted him to hear my side. He was saying I tried to kill him. I said, no, I didn't. You're the one that did something evasive and illegal.
Now, at some point, you say that police arrived and you told them your side of the story. You told them your side of the story. Is that right, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. But then the next day, you went to the police station.
Correct.
To file a supplementary report.
Correct.
Why?
Because when I came out, we had first looked, it was dark. They tried to look at the flashlight, and they couldn't see the dent in my car. You could see like the outline of a foot on each side. So when I came out the next morning, sun out, you could see the dent. So I went back to the police station just so they could put that in record that there was damage to my car.
All right. Can I see the initial police reports, please?
I had all the supplementals attached.
When were you arrested for assault?
I wasn't arrested. I was charged.
Charged?
I received it in mid-April.
Good. Can I see it, please? It says that you did willfully and unlawfully use force upon a person, to wit, Anthony Von Prague. You did do that.
To protect myself, yes.
Well, I haven't heard protecting yourself. He didn't put his hands on you.
He had a 600-pound motorcycle that himself and the motorcycle moved towards me.
You say in your initial report to the police, you don't say that he lunged forward with his motorcycle. What you say is she got out of the car, she saw Von Prague. It's at one point she thought she saw Von Prague and his motorcycle lunge toward her. Out of instinct and self-defense, she put her hands out and pushed Von Prague on his right side. Okay? So you don't say that he moved the motorcycle. You say to the police, you thought he moved the motorcycle.
Okay.
I haven't gotten to him yet. Go.
Okay, Your Honor, I was proceeding in the number 1 lane here with my motorcycle. The defendant was trying to cross over into the number 3 lane, which is the northbound lane getting to the freeway here, and she had blocked traffic essentially in all 3 lanes at this point. Her car, the majority of her car was in lane number 2, but the rear of her car was still sticking into lane number 1. I proceeded around the rear of her vehicle, opposite of her path of travel. There was about at least half the lane exposed there, and I continued on. The next thing I know, both my mirrors are filled with lights, and I look at my mirrors and I see a vehicle coming up about twice my speed, straddling the center line. So this vehicle had now gone in, come back into the number 1 lane and number 2 lane, and she went by me while swerving to the left slightly, and I was between the curb and the side of her car.
So she passed you?
No, she buzzed me. She went by me fast and in my lane.
I understand that. Listen to what I'm saying, sir.
Yes.
You say she buzzed you.
Correct.
After she shone her lights in your mirror.
Correct.
You say she passed you.
That is correct.
That's all I want you to say. You say buzzed, I say passed.
Sure.
She passed you.
She went past my vehicle.
Right.
And she went by at such a high rate of speed, I actually felt the wind of her car through my armored pants. We came to a stop. Actually, she was in the number 2 lane, as she described. I was still in the number 1 lane. Her vehicle was very close to the center line. I don't think it was crossing over the line into the number 1 lane, but she was very close to me. And I was lined up with a rear quarter panel.
I was yelling at her because I had no idea why she had just done this to me, why she had just nearly
Maybe she was a nut.
Maybe she was.
And what do you do when you come in contact with a nut and you're on a motorcycle and they're in a car?
Well, Your Honor,
what is the smart thing to do?
The smart thing to do would be just to proceed in the opposite direction. Yes.
Right.
That's right.
But
That's
you
right.
opted not to do that. You opted to tell her how dumb she was.
Well,
by getting her attention.
That is true.
By kicking her car.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. So I knocked on her car once.
No, I'm not finished with my...
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. As you would say, I acted badly.
Yes, you did.
And
perfect. Just to say, I have an acknowledgement that you acted badly.
I am willing to fess up in anything I've done in this situation. So
go ahead.
So at this point, I knocked on the car once with the side of my boot.
No. Listen, I want you to use the word that I'm going to use.
Kick. I kicked her car once with my boot.
You know he's a fast learner.
Yes.
Right?
I kicked her car once with the side of my boot. This is the boot here.
Right, now that we've used the boot, could you put the boot on the floor, please?
Yes. I brought the other one in case you want them. So at this point, her door flew open. She came running up to my right-hand side, and I was still in the motorcycle. It's a 600-pound motorcycle. The motorcycle was in gear. Both hands were on the handlebar, and the kickstand was in the up position. And at this point, the traffic was just beginning to proceed, starting with the number 3 lane and starting to work its way over.
Okay.
So
lanes weren't going anywhere because her car was stopped.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
Yes. So she comes flying out of her car. She says, "Why the F did you kick my car?" And I said, "Why the F did you try to kill me? What are you trying to do? You're trying to kill me." And she ran through the list of names, a-hole, et cetera, et cetera. And I was sitting there. She was in an absolute rage. At this point, traffic was continuing to move. Cars were honking behind us. And I looked at her and I said, "Get back in your car, you fat bee."
Go ahead.
She looked at me. She started shaking. And
quiet!
And she shoved me as hard as she could from my right-hand side. Well, once she shoved me, the motorcycle went over, and at this point, I had to take my hand off the clutch, and that's why the motorcycle started spinning around in circles. I luckily had landed on my feet, and I said, "I'm calling the cops." I went over and got her license plate number even before I shut off the motorcycle, and went back, shut off the motorcycle. At this point, she proceeded to the number 3 lane, got onto the freeway, northbound. I called the police, and I told them what direction she was proceeding, and they went and sent a separate police car and went and chased her down and brought her back to the scene.
That's not correct.
Well, where were you stopped?
I went to the hospital, which is straight ahead. I did not get on 101 north
Just a
or
minute.
south.
So you went to the hospital?
Correct.
Go ahead.
I called Twin City Police Department, and they told me there were policemen on site to go ahead and return to the incident.
Okay, so you came back by yourself? Or
Correct.
You came back by yourself?
She came back following a police car.
That is not correct.
Well, it is correct.
No, it is
She came
not
back
correct.
following the police car. Otherwise, she wouldn't even known where we were stopped.
I know exactly where the incident was.
Don't speak to him.
In talking to... I'm sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Lee Sullivan claims fellow motorist Nico Van Prague kicked a dent into the side of her car.
I'd like to see the damage done to your motorcycle.
These are the pictures of the damage, and this is the written estimate. Those pictures were taken the day after. As you'll see from the pictures, the corner of the side bag is ground flat, which confirms the fact that the motorcycle was in gear when it fell over. I also have an affidavit from the BMW dealer who inspected it.
Not necessary.
Okay.
Okay, now let me see the damage caused when Mr. Van Prague kicked your car, which you did, sir. Is that right?
This is the
car.
Is that right?
I knocked her in her car once, yes.
You kicked her car. You didn't knock her with your tongue, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You kicked her with your boot.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you kicked her, and you were angry.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you didn't tap her. You kicked it, and you caused a little dimple in her car.
I'll demonstrate to you that I don't have the ability of doing that with this boot or my ability of sitting on the motorcycle.
And how are you going to demonstrate that to me, sir?
Well, I have the boot here, and I also have photographs of me on the motorcycle with a kicking action. It's a very high motorcycle. It's 600 pounds. It has a 33-inch seat height, and I'm only 5'11", so I'm actually on my tippy toes when I'm sitting on the motorcycle. I have a very limited range of motion when I'm sitting on the motorcycle.
Unless
so,
you're really angry.
Well, even if I'm angry, Your Honor.
Can I see a picture of the whole car?
I will show you these pictures.
I'm sorry, I do not have one.
Well, where is this ding in your car?
I have estimates here, but it's in the rear driver's side of the vehicle.
Your Honor, that's a BMW 7 Series. It's very thick sheet metal. If I could do that with any boot, I would at least have to be off the motorcycle. It's also above the bumper in an inset place, and there's no damage to the tail light or the surrounding bumper. So it would be a very difficult angle of attack to be able to get into
Well,
that
let me ask
area.
you this question, sir. Why would you think that Ms. Sullivan would go and file a supplementary report the next day?
I think to defend herself, because it was so clear that she had assaulted me, and it was so clear that she had caused damage to my motorcycle that I thought she...
that's a reasonable explanation. Eventually, these charges were dismissed. Is that right?
Correct.
Good. Were you notified of the dismissal of these battery charges, sir?
I had a discussion with the second DA who took over the case about 2 weeks prior to the trial, and he said that he would like to discuss the evidence with me. He felt that it should be best handled in small claims court.
Okay.
And at that time, I had explained to him that I would rather be done with the issue than take it to court again. But I was disappointed in their decision.
What happened that day was Mr. Von Prague was in a hurry, and he wanted to get around you, which he did. And that irritated you because he probably went around to your senses too fast. Instead of letting it rest, which would have avoided any and all confrontation, you decided to, at night, blind him with your lights by flashing your high beams. Unnecessary. Then Mr. Von Prague did something that was more stupid than your flashing your lights at him. He thought that you were trying to hurt him, and he didn't know what kind of a nut you were. So instead of just letting it rest and proceeding on his way, where were you going, Mr. Von Prague?
Home.
Home.
From work.
He decided to kick your car. Very stupid. Now, the next stupid thing that happened was you, not knowing what kind of a nut Mr. Von Prague is, decide to get out of your car and confront him by saying, "What the blank did you do to my car?" So you knew what happened because you got out and said to him, "What the blank are you doing?" And that car's all around you. He responded, "And what the blank are you doing trying to kill me?" And as my father's joke would go, the fight was on. But then, Miss Sullivan, you did something that you're not permitted to do. You put your hands on him, and I find that you were not defending yourself. I find that you were furious, and in a fit of anger, you pushed him off his motorcycle and caused about $660 worth of damage to his motorcycle. That's what you did.
Not in anger.
Yes, it was. It was in anger because you got out of the car angry. You were angry enough at him to put your brights on when he passed you instead of letting it rest. You were that angry. Instead of just letting it rest, you flashed your brights on him. I mean, I've been driving a car for more years than you're old, and I'm telling you, the only time you do that is when you are really PO'd. And if that's not the only time you do it, then you're a very bad driver. In any event, you're not getting a nickel to fix the ding in your car. All I'm doing, sir, is taking out what I consider the $60 that it probably will take to fix the ding in our car from the $660 that you want to fix your motorcycle. And since you behaved equally as badly that day, would you say that that's true, sir? Because you put your foot on her car in anger, giving you a judgment on your counterclaim for $600. That's all. Step back.
Parties are excused.
It's sad to think that a woman can't protect herself.
Well, I think we both acted badly.
A man admittedly aggressively hitting my car.
I was really upset about being run off the road.
I felt threatened. His bike came towards me.
And it was the wrong thing to do, but I was trying to get an explanation as to why she threatened my life.
Just pay attention to my own self and ignore anybody else's responses or reactions.
I would look the other way and have been since.
Truck driver Glenn Ingram is suing his cousin, homemaker Renee Barber, and her husband Larry. Glenn claims the Barber's daughter, 9-year-old Hannah, ran into his car with her go-kart. The Barbers are countersuing for Hannah's medical bills.
All rise.
Yes, case number 130 on the calendar in the matter of Ingram versus Barber. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Mr. Ingram, the defendants are cousins of yours, and this is their little girl, and according to your complaint, their little girl was driving a go-kart, and her go-kart hit your car. You want them to pay the damages to your car. Mr. and Mrs. Barber say that you were not driving carefully, that there was a collision between your car and their daughter's go-kart, and they are counterclaiming for not only her medical bills because she was injured, but for damages to the go-kart. Yes. Is the go-kart red or green?
There was two go-karts. The stepbrothers, Larry, and the yellow one. And Hannah was the green.
The Hannah was in the green. The green is the one that you say you collided with.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did this happen, Mr. Ingram?
Happened on Friday, March the 19th.
Now, is this an area where you live?
No, ma'am. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I was on my way down to pick up my stepdaughter.
And show me where you were going and how fast you were going, sir.
Okay, this is a gravel road. I was going westbound on Eisenhower Road. As I was approaching Iowa Road right here, I seen a go-kart turn the corner, which was Larry.
That was Larry. That was you, sir.
Yes. And a
okay,
go-kart.
and that's correct. What he's showing me is correct.
Yes. And as I got to the intersection, this go-kart right here, which was driving too fast, was sliding through here. So I started heading for the edge of the complete edge of the road, which right here is about a 3 to 4 foot drop-off on that side right there. So I went to the complete edge. The go-kart hit my front left bumper, had my fender, had my tire.
So when you collided with Hannah, tell me what happened to Hannah.
It spun her around, and she stopped immediately.
Did she remain on her go-kart, or was
Yes,
she
ma'am.
thrown?
She remained on the go-kart because she was stunned and amazed, scared. She didn't know what to do.
So what did you do?
I ended up in the ditch once I got by her, and I stopped in the ditch. I got back and ran back to make sure that she was okay. And I don't know how I missed her feet. I don't know how she come out of it alive.
Okay. But she did.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Now, do you remember what happened to Hannah? Why don't you come up here and tell me? Because you weren't there, were you, Larry?
I was in the...
You were in a car.
I was in this
him.
go-kart, and it
You
was
passed him.
Yeah. I just happened to turn, to look back at the time she was turning the corner.
No, you didn't.
So.
That's a fib. You didn't turn around. You didn't turn around until you heard something happen.
No, I looked back to make sure she turned the corner.
You turned around just at the time of impact?
I just looked back to see that she was coming around the corner.
Weren't you telling me, Larry, that you turned around just at the point of impact?
No, I
Good.
looked back.
I just wanted to make sure that that's where you weren't going to try to tell me that, Larry. You like your go-kart? You still drive?
No, it's still, we still need to fix it.
Okay. Tell me about that day in March when you had this collision.
I was coming out of the driveway, and I...
Well, would you go over to that sign over there and show me where your driveway is? You could go down and point it out to me, okay?
Okay. I was coming out, and I was getting ready to turn the corner.
Turn around to talk to me.
And I couldn't stop, so I shut the key off. I started turning the corner.
Okay, so when you say you couldn't stop, is that because you were going too fast around the corner? Well, why couldn't you stop, Hannah?
Because only like half of my foot could touch the brake.
The brake pedal was a little too far away. Okay. Had you ridden this go-kart before?
Mm-hmm. Many times.
So how come on that day your foot didn't hit the pedal?
It always been like that.
So you have to grow another inch or two. Is that right? Where were you? Do you remember, Hannah, when you turned the key off?
Yeah,
Show me where you were.
I was kind of like right here, and I turned it off, and then I turned the corner towards the ditch, and then he just hit me.
Okay. Go and have a seat over there, Hannah.
Your Honor, after the accident, the go-kart was still running.
Well, Hannah was very clear to me. She was driving a go-kart that was a little too big for her. She couldn't reach the brake. She turned it off before the collision. She probably lost control of it because she was trying to make a turn. And there was an accident. That takes care of your counterclaim. You understand that?
Yes.
Because Hannah was being very honest with me. You shouldn't not let this child drive a machine that she can't operate safely. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Larry? Because she's very lucky she wasn't killed. Right?
Right.
Can I see your estimates, please?
There's the police report right there, and 2 estimates.
Mr. Ingram, how fast were you going, sir?
Approximately 30 miles an hour.
You have insurance on these go-karts, Mr. Barber?
No, we don't.
Anything else you want to tell me?
Your Honor, there's no reason why Mr. Ingram wasn't able to see that go-kart, even like he says it on, for instance, on this right here.
He saw it.
I mean, before the accident even happened, this go-kart is like 5 feet tall with 2 big lights on the top. I mean, Mr. Ingram had plenty of time to stop the go-kart, or to stop his vehicle for the corner.
Well, what you wrote there, sir, is incorrect. What you're suggesting in your diagram is that Mr. Ingram was in the wrong lane and your daughter was in the right lane, and she was making an appropriate turn into an appropriate lane, and that Mr. Ingram was traveling incorrectly, going down the wrong way on the street, which is what you say in your answer. But that's not true, Mr. Barber. That's not even true according to Hannah. According to Hannah, she lost control of this go-kart because she couldn't stop it.
Your Honor, even if she tried to stop the go-kart, once you shut the key off, that go-kart will stop within 4 to 5 feet.
4 to 5 feet is a lot of feet, sir, and you can't tell me that. She lost control. That's not what happened. This is what happened.
That's not what happened, Your Honor. That's not what happened at all. This road, Rock Creek Road, is 24 feet wide. There is 3 sets of tracks on Rock Creek Road. That 3rd track is 6 feet over on Hannah's side of the road, which clearly states that Glenn was on Hannah's side of the road.
That's loose gravel out there.
Show me a police report that indicates that he was on the wrong side of the road.
It doesn't state that on
Of course it doesn't.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. 9-year-old Hannah Griffin ran into his car with her go-kart. Hannah says she lost control because her feet didn't reach the pedals.
Let us assume, for instance, sir, that instead of Mr. Ingram coming down that road, you had a 6-year-old child on a bicycle, and Hannah lost control of the go-kart because she couldn't reach with her little feet the brake pedal. And instead of going into a car causing some damage, she hit a 6-year-old riding on a bicycle and killed him. Who do you think would be responsible?
That would be.
Right. You know why? Because you allowed your daughter to drive a go-kart that was unsafe for her to drive. Now, the fact that this is a car doesn't make you any less responsible, because I have no indication that he was traveling inappropriately. You don't even suggest in your answer that he was speeding down the road, and you passed him, right? Okay. So you have to pay for the damage to his car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,800. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He lied about the whole accident.
Why would I be on the wrong side of the road there, trying to run over somebody?
I was hurt on the side because of the seatbelt burn and on my neck.
I don't know how she lived through the accident. You know, I'm a truck driver. I drive over the road. I got real quick reflexes. When I seen her come, I head straight for the edge of the road.
He did not check on her. He didn't even care that she was even hurt.
It's just allegations. You know, I got out of the car immediately and went to her and made sure, you know, she was okay.
He stood there on his phone, worried about his car. That's the one thing he was worried about at the time was his car. Not once was he worried about my daughter.
Your Honor, this is case number 230 on the calendar. Bear with me. In the matter of Greco-Reese versus Haspatka.
Who's Haspatka?
Me.
Good. Go.
Heinlein, Hamilton, and Archieweski. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
You see, when you're in charge, you could take certain license. So let me show you what I'm going to do. That's
Okay.
Mr. A, B, C, and D.
I wish I could have done that.
Where is your rental property?
I'm sorry, Omaha, Nebraska.
And you rent this house to college students.
Well, I just rent it. It just happens to be college students that always.
You've rented to college students
Well,
before,
yeah.
so you rent to college students.
Yeah.
You have any dislike for this property? You hate this property?
This is the first time I've ever had any trouble.
Did you always rent to girls in the past?
No.
You rented to boys? Mm-hmm. Never had any trouble?
No.
Miraculous. How big is this house that you rented, Mr. A?
It's a split entry, 4-bedroom. I don't know the square footage.
And what was the rent on the house?
I believe it was $950, split 4 ways.
And when did you start your lease?
August 1st, 2003.
Name of the university you attended?
University of Nebraska at Omaha.
What year are you in?
4th year, senior.
Senior as well. Senior. Senior.
Raise your hand if you're a good golfer.
Is that anybody in here?
No, just you. All right, Ms. Reese, this is the situation. According to your complaint, these 4 young slobs destroyed your house, and in addition to leaving the place a mess, they decided to play golf off the roof of your house at some point and cause substantial damage to your roof.
Yes, ma'am.
So you want them to pay for the repairs.
Yes.
The boys say they didn't have a chance to clean up because you changed the locks on the house, which must have been the month of July, right?
Correct.
End of July, yeah.
End of July.
End of mid-July, right?
Yeah.
Well, end of mid-July.
End to mid-July.
I don't remember the exact date, sometime after the 20th of July.
So the end of July, she changed the locks.
Yes.
Why do you think she changed the locks, gentlemen?
I don't know. She claims that we abandoned the house, but we did not. We still had property in there.
Did you pay July's rent?
No.
Well, just a minute. Mr. D says yes. You say no. Mr. D, did you pay July's rent?
The security deposit, she took that as last month's rent, is what she told us. She said we didn't have to pay last month's rent. She would keep the security deposit.
Why would anybody in their right mind say that until they inspected the house?
Good question.
Who did she say that to?
On the phone. On July 19th, the day rent was due.
July 19th. And what did you say?
She called me. I was in bed. She woke me up, and she said she was talking about rent due today, and I said, yeah, I know. I'm going to bring it down later. And she said, but if you guys, don't pay it, I'll just keep the security deposit as last month's rent.
Is that what you told him?
No, ma'am. There was so much damage in the house that I could have used another 2 months' rent to fix what I fixed in that house.
Listen, Mr. A, maybe it's just that you were groggy. Because what you just told me was that you said to your landlord, I'm going to bring the rent down later on today, and she said, nah, forget it.
She didn't say, nah, forget it. But she left me with the understanding that
that's different.
If we did not pay last month's rent, I don't remember exact words, I'm sorry, this was a long time ago. I was under the understanding when I hung up the phone that if we decided that we didn't want to pay last month's rent, she would keep the security deposit.
Well, maybe you said to her, maybe since you don't remember the exact words, and maybe the impression was left with you because you said to her, I'm not giving you the last month's rent, keep the security deposit. Because then, that was on the 19th, sir?
Yes.
When did she change the locks on the house?
Like I said, sometime after the 20th. It was
that would have been, listen to me,
okay.
Listen to me, that would have been the very next day. So that makes sense to me. What makes sense to me is she called you and said, where's the rent? And you said, you're not getting the rent. You keep the security deposit. And then she says, oh, yeah, I'm changing the locks on the house. That makes sense. Not, don't come down and pay me the rent. I'll keep the security deposit for the last month. And then she goes in and changes the locks. That doesn't make sense. Okay, now, what I would like to see from you is photographs of the house if you have it.
Got those here.
And after I look at the photographs of the house, I would like to hear from your witness, if any. I assume that this is your witness, who's going to tell me something about these golf balls being hit off the roof, which A, B, and C deny. And D. Forgot about you. Sorry. Well, something's going on up there. Do you have major hailstorms?
No.
Nebraska?
Not that year.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, we did.
Major hailstorms?
Not that time.
You gotta be kidding me.
It was probably the worst year for hail we've had in quite a while, actually.
Really? And you think that the hailstorms did this damage to the roof?
I don't know what the damage looks like, but...
Well, I'm going to show it to you. You can bring this over and share it with A through D.
Pass them down, boys.
Your Honor.
I assume since you didn't see the damage and you don't know anything about the damage.
I do know one thing.
Yes.
I found out today that they had a 5th person living in my house because the man that came to help
the
last D,
Mr.
to
D.
help D
Perfect.
move out, was the one that told my new renters what they did, and they started at July 4th.
Just a second. You're the new renter?
That's correct.
Tell me your name.
Robert Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, when did you meet these gentlemen, if at all?
I believe it was either the 25th or shortly after the 25th of July.
And where did you meet them?
At the home.
What were they doing there?
They were removing their belongings.
Did you have a conversation with any of these gentlemen?
Yes, I had a conversation with a close friend of the defendant's. He said to me...
Just a second. What was his name?
You know, I don't recall at this time. I'm kind of flustered with names. I don't recall names very well. I'm more of a face person.
I can't take your testimony. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
This is a court. Court, we take evidence, Miss Reese. If this young man had had a conversation with one of these defendants, then certainly he could have testified if any of them made an admission to him. But you want me to take his testimony about somebody whose name he doesn't know, who's not present today, and that's hearsay, okay, to support your case. So I can't do that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Go Reese says her former tenants, Joel Hospodka, Ronald Heinlein II, Adam Hamilton, and J.J. Archewesky for damage to a rental property. Gail says the house looked like it had never been cleaned.
Okay. Do you have any photographs of the interior of the house, Miss Reese?
Your Honor, I didn't lose them. My sister-in-law did. But I have the letter I sent them with all the things that were wrong with the house. It was the abandonment letter that my attorney told me to write to them.
Whose job was it to clean the bathroom?
Kind of a joint effort.
Well, nobody raised their hand.
Who was?
Okay. Who cleaned the bathrooms?
Usually probably me.
That would be... Because it says here, the bathrooms, and in big letters it says the bathrooms were disgusting. It appears as if it has never been cleaned. Well, based upon the lack of showing of hands, I would say that that's probably true. It's too late. Too late. Holes in the walls in the master bedroom, broken window, broken door frame. Who had the dog? Raise your hand. Dog! Mr. D, Mr. A, what kind of dog did you have?
We had 3 Chihuahuas.
Whose job was it to pick up the poop in the house from the dogs?
Whoever's dog it was.
Everybody pretty much.
And who did it?
We all did.
We all did.
Oh, there was some you missed.
Small dog.
Small dog. It's disgusting.
No.
But
Your Honor,
I've had 5 children who all went to college and who all, at one time or another, lived in rental property. And I remember I used to check to see if my inoculations were in order before I went to visit them. And if they would ever ask me, would you like to go visit my friend's house, I would say, no, thank you. They can join us for breakfast at McDonald's. Because I don't go to anybody else's mess. Bad enough I have to go and look at your mess. Yeah. So you have to understand that you've been very fortunate if you haven't had a mess.
This is the first time I've had it this bad.
I'm not even addressing the golf balls over here because you don't have any proof of that. You don't have any confessions and you don't have any witnesses who saw them hitting golf balls off the roof. And I'm not going to get any admissions from these guys because nobody even wants to admit who did the bathroom. Aside from the roof, let me see estimates of the damage to the house.
I didn't have them because I just wrote everything down when I sent them in that abandonment letter.
Yeah, well, that's not
and
good
at
enough.
the time of the lease, when they signed the lease, they asked if they could have 1 dog.
I don't care whether they have 1 dog, they can have 1 dog, they have 20 dogs. They got to clean up the dog's poop and not leave it in the closet. Listen, they did not pay the last month's rent, and they were there after the 18th of July. Therefore, they owe you the entire month's rent. That's $950. And based upon what I see in your abandonment letter and what they concede about the condition of the house, that they had 2 dogs, I mean, that's not something that you guess at. You guessed that they had 2 dogs. You found remnants of the dogs there. I can guarantee you that it cost $900 to fix up the mess that you left in the house. So you owe her $950 for rent, and you owe her $950 for cleanup. Well, you've already paid her $950 because that used your security deposit. So, gentlemen, you owe the plaintiff $950. Divvy it up. That's it.
Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
One of their friends told one of my new renters why the roof was damaged.
Everything on the roof is baloney, if you ask me. We never went on the roof. I don't know where she got that from.
I changed the locks and told them they had to call me when they were ready to get their stuff, that they were not going into the house.
There was stuff that we damaged. She didn't have a chance for us to fix it. I mean, she just changed the locks.
They're seniors in college. I hate to see what they did in high school.
We're 4 college guys. Obviously, there's going to be damages done to the house.
I feel sorry for the ladies that marry him.
In my opinion, she's a pathological liar. Now I understand why she's single.
And nurse Veronica Treitner is suing her daughter, 19-year-old waitress Jessica Unterberger, for her share of an insurance settlement. Veronica says Jessica cashed a check and took off with the money.
Yeah, this is case number 260 on the calendar in the matter of Treitner versus Unterberger.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, sir.
Ms. Treitner, the defendant is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are suing her because, according to what I read, your daughter was riding in a car as a passenger. Who was driving?
I was driving.
And there was an accident.
Yes.
And your daughter was injured.
Yes.
She was under 18 at the time.
Yes.
And you decided, rather than going to trial, because I assume the other person was responsible?
Yes.
You settled her claim.
That's correct.
For a little over $4,000.
Yes.
She wasn't living with you at the time, because your daughter has been in foster care for a good part of her adolescence.
That's correct.
And you sent her the check, because there was a two-party check, and you instructed her to sign the back of the check, send it back to you, and you would give her some of the money.
That's correct.
And she kept the check and cashed it.
Yes.
And spent the money.
Yes.
So you want half the money back for her medical bills.
That's correct.
Okay. How old are you?
I'm 19.
When did you go into foster care?
I went into foster care the 24th of May in 2002 is the official date.
Who did you live with before that time?
My mother.
Had you been in foster care at any time from the age of 12 to 16?
I went to foster care when I was 14 and I turned 15 in foster care.
You have siblings?
Yes.
How old are they?
My brother's 14.
Does he live with your mother?
Yes.
Has he always lived with your mother?
Yes.
He was not in foster care?
No.
So I gather from what you tell me, you and your mother had a rocky relationship, which is why she put you in foster care.
Correct.
And you have remarried?
Yes.
Now, you took her out of foster care because you were going on a vacation or a trip?
That's not exactly true. We asked them if she could go with us. It's not so much that we took her out, but it was more like a trial to see if she could come back home and live with us.
And that's when the accident occurred?
Yes.
Tell me about the accident. When was it?
It was June 14th, 2002. We were getting onto the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and there was an 18-wheeler in front of us stopped. I stopped. The person behind me stopped. The person behind him did not. When he hit that car hit us. It bounced back and hit us again. Jessica was on the driver's side back. I was driving. The car, when it hit that side twice. We at first declined care because she said she was fine. By the time we got to New Jersey, she was complaining of symptoms of a whiplash. We took her into the hospital, and she did have whiplash.
Did the insurance company pay for the damage to your car?
Yes.
Whose insurance?
The person that hit us.
Did you sue on your behalf?
No.
Who else was in the car?
My husband was in the car, and she was in the car, and my son was in the car.
Anybody else injured besides your daughter?
Not in our car. I don't know about the other people.
Not in your car?
Right.
So what medical bills did you have for your daughter?
We had medical bills from the hospital in New Jersey where she was seen, and a hospital bill from a lab. I think it's in my paperwork.
Well, I'd like to see it.
This is the breakdown of where the money was supposed to go. It was for the radiologist. Everything else.
Did you pay these bills?
Yes.
Let me see.
I don't have the receipts. They were just paid for I think on my husband's credit card like 2 years ago, and we don't have the bill.
Your Honor, I was in foster care, therefore Medicaid paid for the bills. I was unable to get a hold of Medicaid. I was unable to get a hold of the hospital, but I do have copies of my physical therapy that I went through. Payments, and it also, the highlighted section is Medicaid adjustments and Medicaid paid.
Can I see it?
We did not ask them to pay anything that Medicaid paid. Her physical therapy, anything that happened in the state of Ohio.
I just need proof that you paid these bills.
I don't have it.
Well, that's unfortunate, because if she was in foster care, your daughter is absolutely right. If she was in foster care, then the state pays for any medical treatment that she had.
That's true. However, regardless of whether her bills were paid or not, it says on there that she's supposed to get $2,000 only. The other $2,000 was supposed to be for her bills. I thought if they were already paid, I would not have to bring any more proof. I mean, it's to pay her bills.
Let me ask you this question. Which one is it? Is it that you paid the bills, or you didn't pay the bills, but you felt as if $2,000 was supposed to be towards the bills, so you should be entitled to that? Which one was it?
The bills were paid.
By whom?
I paid them, and my husband paid them. They're on his...
All you have to do is show me.
I can't.
Listen to me, Miss Trentner. Even if you didn't pay and Medicaid paid, only $2,000 of that $4,000 check was to go to your daughter, and you as her parent would be entitled to the other half.
No. The other money was to pay the bills. She was only entitled to...
Listen, I do not believe, madam, that... Stop playing with the paper. I do not believe that you paid the bills. I'm going to tell you why I don't believe that you paid the bills. First of all, you don't have any evidence that you paid the bills, and you don't look like an unintelligent woman. And if you're coming to court and saying, and your complaint says, half the money was to pay for the bills, that is your whole case. Your whole case is the bills.
No, ma'am, that was not why I wanted to see the judge. Why I wanted to come was because when I sent Jessica the check, she forged my name and took any money, period. It's the fact that she forged my name, or she had somebody forge the name on my check.
Then what you're saying is, it's not because you spent your own money out of your pocket to pay for her medical bills that you should be reimbursed for. You came to court and you wanted to see the judge because your daughter had forged your name and taken all the money.
Ma'am, that is correct. However,
all right.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I don't care at this point about the $2,000 that is in dispute, whether you say I owe it or whatever. And you can keep the $2,000. I don't care. The dispute is she forged my name on the check.
And?
I would like her to have to pay for something that she's done wrong at least once in her life.
Ms. Triton, your daughter was under the age of 18 at the time you sent her this check, is that right?
That is correct.
And so she was still technically your responsibility?
No, ma'am.
Oh, she was no. She was your responsibility. You chose to abdicate that responsibility by putting her in foster care.
Can I tell you why she was put in foster care?
Sure.
When she was about 12 or 13, she started to hit people, and she would not stop. We had her arrested at least twice for domestic violence before she was put out of my house. I told her...
Right now, is it normal for a child who's 12 years old to act out in that way?
Yes, but...
You think it's normal for a child of 12 years old to act out in that way?
No, I don't.
Okay. So what did you as a parent do while she was living with you in order to try to get to the root of the problem as to why she was acting out in that way?
We sent her to counseling. I went to counseling with her. We tried to take my mom to counseling. We tried to get my son to go.
What do you mean you tried to take your mom to counseling?
My mom lived with us, and she would not go to counseling.
Well, was there a problem with your mother?
There's many problems with my mother, Judge.
Well, what was the problem with your mother and your daughter? What was the problem with your grandmother and you?
The main thing was before we had moved in with my grandmother, because for the longest time it was just me, my brother, and my mom. And then we decided, because my mother was working all the times, and me and my brother were from babysitter to babysitter, that it was just easier for us to live with my grandmother so she could watch us. Before we moved in with my grandmother, everything was fine. We were kids. We were allowed to go hang out, play with our friends, whatever. We moved in with my grandmother, and all that stopped. My brother was still allowed to do whatever he wanted, and I was constantly on lockdown. I wasn't allowed to talk on the phone, wasn't allowed to go hang out.
What do you mean you were on lockdown?
I was in the house 24/7. I wasn't allowed to go hang out with my friends. I wasn't allowed to go do anything school-related.
You mean your grandmother was strict with you?
Yes.
Okay. And you tried to get your mother to go to counseling?
Correct.
And your mother refused to go to counseling?
Exactly.
I assume you wanted your mother to go to counseling because you felt as if some of her behavior was not appropriate.
I felt between my mother, me, and Jessica that there was an issue that we needed to get to the bottom of. Yes.
Okay, and your mother refused to go?
Yes.
Your daughter went?
Yes.
You went?
Yes.
She's 12.
Actually, she was a little bit older.
She's 13. She's 14. I understand that you were a single mother and you had 2 children, but you put your daughter in a situation that you acknowledge was not the best situation for her with your mother, with somebody who refused to address any problems that there were, and you responded to that when your daughter started to act out, which I'm sure she acknowledges was inappropriate, inappropriate behavior, but she started to act out. Your response was, instead of moving out of your mother's house, you put her in foster care.
That's not exactly true. My mom lived with us because she could not work. She had nowhere else to go. My brother wouldn't take her. Nobody would take her.
Just a second. Is what you're telling me now that you had to make a choice between your mother and your daughter?
No.
That your mother had no place else to go and you couldn't put your mother in foster care, so you put your daughter in foster care?
No.
Come on.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to get what's happening here.
Can I kind of explain it? Jessica would go from hitting, then she went to punching. She tried to choke me. She went after her grandmother with a butcher knife. The reason that I finally put her out is because I told her, if you ever hit your brother, you cannot stay with me anymore. I put up with a lot of stuff. Even when she went to counseling, we found an excellent counselor for her, was working wonders for her. Then she decided that she didn't like him, and then she wouldn't talk to anybody. So when she hit her brother in the face, that's when I told her that she was no longer welcome in my home, because she was my daughter, and I didn't know what else to do.
Okay, so that's, just a second, so that's what you did. And then you had a problem with this check. Now, you don't have to answer me as to whether or not you forged your mother's name. You forged your mother's name, you cashed the check. That's what you did, right?
Correct.
Okay, what'd you do with the money?
I was living in my own apartment, and I needed furniture for my apartment.
How old were you when you were living in your
I was 17.
Okay.
Foster care has a program called independent living, and that's what they did. They put me in independent living. I needed pots and pans, dishes.
Okay, so you were living in an apartment?
Correct.
Did you know that she was living by herself?
Yes, I did.
Good. What did you do to help her set up in her apartment?
When she set up in her own apartment, we were already in New Jersey.
I didn't ask you where you were. I said, what did you do to help her set up in her own apartment?
When she called me, I asked her if she needed anything. She told me no, she was fine.
So the answer that you're telling me is you did nothing for her to set her up in her own apartment at age 17.
I asked her if she needed, right, that's correct.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Treitner says her daughter, Jessica Unterberger, stole her share of an insurance settlement.
Okay. So she says she needed furniture and pots and pans, and she needed some money. Were you working?
Yes.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was working at a pizza parlor.
Are you still working there?
No, that was in Ohio. I currently live in New York now.
And what do you do in New York?
During the summer season, I'm a soccer referee, and right now I'm working as a waitress.
Where?
At a restaurant on the east side.
You live alone?
Yes.
That's a hesitant yes.
Because I'm living in a room in a house. There's other people in the house, but it's my room.
So you rent a room?
Yes.
What's your rent?
$120 a week.
And how long have you lived there?
I've lived in this particular place for about 2 weeks now.
Prior to that, where were you living?
I was living in Ridgewood in another one room, and I was paying $90 a week there, and I lived there for 3 months. And before that, I was living with my fiance's parents.
And that didn't work out?
No.
So from the time you were 17 until now, you've taken care of yourself?
Correct.
You got my drift.
I don't understand why you want to believe her, because what she's telling you is not true.
Just a second. All I'm asking you is, you're her mother.
That's correct.
From the time she was 17 until today, other than this $2,000, how much money have you given your daughter?
None, because I did not know where she was.
Now you know where she was. Whether you know where she was or you don't know where she was, you've given her nothing, and she's managed to support herself.
If that's what you want to call it.
Well, she's managed to support herself.
But what she's telling you she does for a living is not what she does for a living.
Well, tell me what she does for a living.
She has tried to sue the state of New York twice.
Yeah.
She has lied to you about where not where she lives, but who she lives with. And
listen to me. I asked you a simple question. You said to me she lied about what she does for a living. And I'm asking you, if she lied about what she did for a living,
she did.
You tell me what she does for a living. Suing the city of New York is not a living.
I understand that.
All right.
The last, what she told you and what she told me was that she works in a restaurant and she gets paid under the table.
Who cares?
But that is not true.
Well, so tell me what she does.
I'm not sure. But I know she doesn't do that.
Let's try now. Let me tell you something. I was concerned.
You know what?
I'm speaking. I was concerned about your lawsuit from the beginning because it seems to me that you were.
Again,
I'm speaking. You were in a car. You were the driver of the car. Your minor daughter was injured in an accident that, according to you, and I have no reason to doubt you, was not your fault. I have children, and if one of my children was injured in an accident, and the accident resulted in that child getting a claim, why don't you try paying attention instead of crying because you're not going to get any money?
I don't care about the money.
Then just listen. Then just listen. It would seem to me what I would do is I would say, gee, here's $4,000. I'm going to put this in an account for my child, for their future, either for college or to set them up in an apartment or to help them maybe with a car. But certainly, I didn't pay out any money because I had insurance that covered the medical bills.
That's not true.
And you didn't pay any money because I don't believe that either you or your husband paid any money, because if you did, you would have the canceled check. You would have your credit card statement showing that you paid the amount 2 years ago, because if you knew you were coming to court and that's the evidence that you required, that's the evidence that you would have. You say you're angry because she forged your name and she should be taught a lesson. Well, it was the wrong thing for her to do, to forge your name and to take the money to use to set up an apartment. But at the time she was 17 years old, she was placed in independent living, had your own apartment. You were working marginally to pay for whatever was in the apartment, and she needed the money. And since you weren't forthcoming with the money and you knew how to reach her because you knew where to send the check, you sent her the check and said, darling, sign the back of this check. When I get the money, I'll give you half.
That's not what happened.
That's what you told me in your complaint. You said, you want me to read you what you wrote? You said, I sent her the check unsigned. I sent it by certified mail.
That's correct.
Okay, so you knew where to send it.
Right after that.
Yeah, just a second. So you knew where to send it. And if you knew where to send it, was she in foster care or was she in her own apartment?
She was in her own apartment at that time.
And how much had you given her at that time to help her set up an apartment? A little slush funds.
Considering that I had just found out that she was on her own, I couldn't have sent her anything, could I have? I did not know.
Yes, just a second.
I did not know.
Yes, my dear, you could have. You could have said, here's $4,000 that I just got. But I'm speaking. You're on your own. I'm signing this check over to you, my sweetheart. I know you've had a difficult teenage time. We haven't always gotten along, but you're on your own now. Here's $4,000 that none of us anticipated because you decided to settle the case for her. Here's $4,000. I want you to take it. Whatever you don't need, listen, whatever you don't need to set up your apartment, put in a bank account and use it with my love. Because part of it should come to me. I'm giving it to you. That's what you should have done. You didn't do it then. You're doing it now. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
I can't believe this. You win again. You.
My mom has a way of twisting things to make it out so that she's always right. She's always been against me, and I think the main part of that is because you look at me, she looks at me and she sees my father. It's been like this my whole life. I've been through foster care, I've been in and out of juvenile detention. Yes, I should not have hit her, but I had no other way to get out of that place. I don't want to get hurt anymore, so if this is how she's going to be, then I don't want to be around that. It's not healthy for me. I think I've paid enough for her. What kind of mother is she? She's just blood. That's all she is. She's not my mother. My foster mother, the one I was with for 2 years, that is my mother. You'll probably see us here in a couple of years. She'll find something else.
22-year-old warehouse worker Kevin Naughton is suing his ex-girlfriend, 24-year-old assembly line printer Glory Jackson, for stabbing him in the arm. Glory says Kevin was attacking her.
Order. All rise. This is number 312 on the calendar in the matter of Naughton versus Jackson. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Naughton, there was a time when you and Miss Jackson had a relationship. Is that right?
Yes.
According to your complaint, you had an argument. And during the course of that argument, Miss Jackson stabbed you with a knife.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no question that you were cut, you received stitches. You want her to pay for that assault.
Yes.
Miss Jackson says she was defending herself because you were in the process of assaulting her and you actually ran into the knife, which she had picked up for protection because you were hitting her. When did this assault take place, sir?
On the 19th of July.
Now, Miss Jackson has a counterclaim. Miss Jackson says that because of you assaulting her and her defending herself, she was arrested, and she had to pay attorneys and she had other costs. So she is counterclaiming for not only the costs of her defending herself, but also for the assault that she alleges you committed against her. Correct?
Yes.
All right. 19th of July, 2004?
Yes.
You were at her house. What were you doing at her house, Mr. Norton?
Well, she had called me on my cell phone, and she had just had a baby, and she had told me that the baby was mine. But the whole time when she was pregnant, she said she was pregnant by some Marine dude in California.
A submarine dude?
Yeah, some Marine guy. She brags about him all the time like he's the best person in the world. So anyway, I come over to see the baby. I'm like, I thought you said it was his. And she just had it, because before she had a baby, like a couple years ago, she had a baby, she said it was mine. And I took a blood test, it wasn't even mine. So she was doing it again, so I'm like, it's not mine. I went to go look at the baby, and I said it didn't look like me. So she gets mad, she tells me to get out of her house, excuse my language. So as I'm leaving, I'm going out the door, I turn around, she's coming at me with a knife. I put it on my arm, and she stabs me in the arm. She stabbed me so hard, the knife broke. And I ran outside, and the ambulance that came and picked me up out the street. I was laying in the middle of the street.
All right, Miss Jackson, you want to tell me your version of the events?
On the morning of July 19th, Mr. Norton was over at my house.
How did he get there?
He called me and told me that he couldn't get into his mother's house and asked me if he could spend the night. I don't even know Mr. Norton's telephone number at that time. Okay, so I said, sure. He came over that night. He spent the night. That morning, I was on the phone with my sister, and so then I took the baby in there to lay him down. Then he said, quit making all the noise, I'm tired, I'm tired. I said, I know why you tired, you don't have no job no more. And then he jumps up and he's like, don't be telling them bees my business. Came in my face, I'm in the bathroom, I'm about to get in the bathtub. Then he pushed me, and I proceeded towards him to, move him, but he's punching me as I'm walking towards him. So I'm running out.
Where is it, just a second, where is he punching you?
He's punching me all here. He didn't ever hit me in my face. He just punched me in my body, my upper top of my body.
Now, were you dressed or undressed as you were going to take a bath?
No, I still had on my pajamas, a nightgown.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, so then I took off running I just ran to the first place. I ran to the kitchen. There was a knife on the counter. He still hit me in the back as I'm running. I grabbed the knife, and I'm doing it like this, saying, Kevin could just get out my house and tell him to get out my house. And he wouldn't leave, and he came towards me, and that's when he got cut. I never swung the knife to cut him. I just held the knife out so he could leave. I could not run out the house because my children were in the house, in their room, sleep. And that's how it happened. Then he took off running out the door. And I did call the police, but his phone call got through before mine, or I don't know what happened. But
just a second. He ran out the door. He was cut.
I didn't know he was cut. Okay.
He ran out the door. He was cut.
Mm-hmm.
Who called the ambulance?
The police must have called the ambulance.
Okay. Now, when did you call the police?
I called the police as soon as I shut the door and locked the door. I called them.
Okay. Did you call the police on your house phone?
No, I called off my cell phone.
Where was your cell phone?
It was on the couch.
You're her sister.
Yes, yes.
You sure you want to do this?
Yes.
I'd think twice about it. But if you're sure you want to do this, I'm ready for you.
Okay.
Step up here. Button your shirt.
It's oh.
It isn't buttoned. Did you go to a preliminary hearing when your sister was arrested?
No.
Did you ever tell a detective that you were on the phone with your sister during this altercation?
Yes.
That was a lie.
No,
no, that was a lie.
How was it a lie?
That was a lie. And I'm going to tell you how I know that was a lie.
How?
Because you just told me 2 seconds ago that you were going into the bathroom in your pajamas. You were still in your pajamas drawing a bath. I'm speaking, and he came into the bathroom, and you started to tussle with him, and you pushed him away from you.
I didn't push him away from me.
Yes, he started.
It's in the letter statement that he wrote. He wrote me a letter.
Listen to me very carefully, madam.
Mm-hmm.
You said you pushed him away from you.
No, I ran. After he pushed me, I was running towards him.
And then you ran outside, and you got a knife. And you held up the knife. And then he got cut. And then you went back to the couch to pick up a phone, which is where you told me the cell phone was, where you called the police. However, in your answer that I read very carefully, you say, the DA eventually dismissed the charges because my sister had stayed on the other end of the phone while this incident occurred. No, she didn't. No, she didn't.
It's in this letter. He even admitted to her that he knows I was on the phone. I was on the phone the whole time. He wrote me a letter stating
You mean to tell me that the phone was in the bathroom?
I was on the phone.
In the bathroom getting ready to take a bath?
On the bathroom. I ran my bath when I was
Just a second. How did the phone then get on the couch?
Because I threw it down as I was running.
Let me see the letter.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Kevin Naughton claims ex-girlfriend Glory Jackson stabbed him in the arm. Kevin says Glory freaked out when he denied being the father of her child.
This doesn't say we were on the phone with your sister.
He said, I did not know you were on the phone with your sister.
And telling her your business. This doesn't say you were on the phone with your sister during the course of the incident.
That's what he's talking about in the letter.
Listen to me. That's not what it says. What else do you want to say?
I guess that's it.
No, not you.
Oh.
You.
I was on the telephone with her when I heard his voice, and I was asking her who that was. And she told me his name, and I said, who? She said, it's the guy that his relative lives next door to my mom. Yes. And I said, oh, okay, because I had met him before.
Yes.
And then, but he was cursing and yelling and everything in the back, and I was asking her why. Then the phone dropped, and it went dead. So I was on the telephone with her.
You didn't hear anything of this incident, is that right?
No, I heard him cursing at her, calling her the B word, slut, and all those type of things. Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
All right, I was going to say that she stabbed me so hard the knife broke. So it wasn't like I just ran into it. She came like this.
Did you go to the doctor after this assault? Not you. I know you did. Did you go to the doctor after this assault?
No, I was arrested.
Well, when you're arrested, they take photographs of you if you have bruises on your body.
Bruises don't usually show up till a few hours later. I didn't have any bruises. You
mean he was punching you and hitting you and you didn't have any marks?
No.
You have a police report, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it.
You want to see my medical bills, too?
Yeah. You have any police report you want me to read?
I have a police report from a previous incident that we had.
I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
You have a previous incident with him, madam, and you don't invite him over to your house to stay over.
I didn't invite him. He called me and asked me if he could stay there till the morning.
Huh. Did you tell him that you thought this baby was his?
No, I did not. His auntie told him that she thought that my baby was his. We were not even messing around at that time. He wanted it to be his very badly, as stated in the letter, so we can be a family, work it out. Yeah, that's what you said. You know you did.
What do you want to say, sir?
Man, I ain't never told her that. She named her last baby. She named after me, and it wasn't even mine. And this one, she's supposed to be with some Marine dude.
I told you it wasn't yours, though. So what are you talking about?
I gotta keep the players straight, folks. Gotta keep the players straight. All right, you had medical bills of $817. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. Your counterclaim, madam, for false arrest is dismissed. I believe that your sister's full of baloney. I don't think that your sister heard anything that involved an assault, heard anything involving punching, hitting, or whatever. She may have heard him curse at you. She may have. I mean, I read what happened on that day. According to him, he told a totally consistent story what happened that he told today, and he told that at the point where he was bleeding from his arm. He hardly had enough opportunity to make up a good story. You, on the other hand, did. Your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
All right, is our excuse. You may step out.
She was cool at first until I said it wasn't mine, and she flipped the script.
I told him that the baby wasn't his. It was a question, but I told him that it wasn't.
I'm through with it.
He always wanted to be over there and just be with me. I don't know. I just had a baby, so you know we wasn't finna have no sex.
I can show you my cell phone. She called me last night and at the airport.
When he got his little money now, maybe he can go get him something with his broke self.
She probably called me right after this.
And Naval Officer Marvin Brayfield and his wife, Jennifer Jesse, are suing the former guardian of Marvin's son, Carolyn Blake, for filing false charges with Child Protective Services. Carolyn claims Marvin kidnapped his boy.
This is case number 353 on the calendar in the matter of Brakefield Jesse versus Blake. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Mr. Brakefield, this is your girlfriend, is that right?
This is my wife.
This is your wife now?
Yes.
At the time of this, it was your girlfriend?
At the time of it, yeah.
Okay. According to what I've read, several years ago, you had either a relationship with somebody, you had a brief marriage.
I was married to my first wife.
Okay. And that marriage produced a child.
Yes, it did.
A child that your then wife was not interested in raising.
That's correct.
And you took custody of that child.
Yes, I did.
But you weren't either in a position or you weren't interested in being a full-time parent either. So you turned your son over to the defendant for the purpose of care. And Mrs. Blake cared for your son for how many years?
21 months.
And during that 21 months, you were in the armed forces?
Yes.
Where were you stationed?
It was in Point Loma, California, in San Diego.
And Mrs. Blake cared for your son every day? He slept there?
Not full-time, no. She was a daycare provider and a close friend.
You mean your son was only there during the day?
She was there during the day, except for Tuesdays and Thursday nights, where she offered to keep him overnight so that I could go work out at the gym and perhaps get some more personal time.
Other than that, he slept at your house?
He slept overnight at my house, yes.
Is that correct?
No, it's not correct. He was with me 24/7 for the first 4 months. He didn't even come by to visit his son, but twice, and it was only after we requested it.
So for the first 4 months, he was with you full-time?
He was with me full-time the whole 21 months.
Does that sound right?
No, it's not correct at all.
Okay. Whether the child was with you 24/7 for the first 4 months or 21 months practically full-time, you started a new relationship with the co-plaintiff, and you decided that it was no longer necessary for Mrs. Blake to take care of your son, so you picked him up one day from her home, didn't tell her that you did not plan to return him, and took him, I assume, back to your house.
Yes.
Mrs. Blake called Child Protective Services. She tried to contact you. She didn't know where you were. She didn't know where the child was. She called Child Protective Services, and she made a report of suspected child abuse and or neglect. And you did do that.
Yes,
you acknowledged that you did that.
Yes, I did, and I was concerned deeply about Cody. He was not ever out of my sight without me knowing where he was more than 2 days.
Just a second. Well, that's what your case is involving. Your case is involving this call to Child Protective Services, which you say were unnecessary and unwarranted, causing you all kinds of grief, and you want to be compensated for that.
Yes.
And Mrs. Blake said that what you really did was amount to kidnapping this child without telling her that you were taking him, without telling her that you did not intend to return him to the home. And she had a legitimate concern about his well-being, and she called Child Protective Services. Right?
That's correct.
So, there's no question that for almost 2 years, Miss Blake was an integral part of your son's life. Is that right?
That's true.
How did he refer to her?
Mom.
I'm asking him.
He called her mommy because that's how she'd call him mommy. She'd call him mamas. So that it would, what he would say when he was around her.
All I want to know from you is, I want a direct answer to my question. Direct answer to my question, Mr. Brakefield, is that he called the defendant mommy, right?
Yes.
Cody also calls him mommy. He also calls me mommy. He calls a lot of people mommy.
I didn't ask you anything yet. Nothing. How did you find Mrs. Blake?
She was a wife of one of my coworkers when I was at a different command.
You must have regarded her highly if you turned your son over to her.
I didn't have anybody else.
So what you're telling me is you would have turned him over to anybody because you needed a babysitter. Is that what you're telling me?
No. She offered to help me out. I was in a tight situation. She offered to help me out, and I accepted her help.
Mr. Brakefield, you're not going to be able to get away from my question. Either you believe that she was a quality caregiver, or you didn't know whether she was a quality caregiver or not, but you used her anyway.
I believe she was a quality caregiver.
That's a better answer. So, did anything happen during the course of the 21 months that Mrs. Blake was caring for your son that led you to believe that she was not a quality caregiver?
Yes.
Tell me what that was.
There were several occasions where I went into her house when picking my son up from her. There would be dog feces outside of her bedroom or down near her office, and she would tell her son to clean it up, and it would just stay there.
So that happened when?
On several occasions.
How much into the babysitting?
It was probably anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half into it.
Well, you weren't sufficiently concerned about that to take your son out and find a different daycare for him, right?
I thought it was something that I could resolve.
How could you resolve that?
By talking to her and saying, no, I've brought this up to you on past occasions.
So what I'm asking you is, it never reached the point where you felt as if your child was in danger.
Not in physical danger, no.
Well, in physical danger from being in a place that was unclean.
Well, he was allowed to walk around with cleaning products like the dishwasher pillow packets. I brought that up, and I was told, he can't break those open. They're tough to open. You can it's hard to open them, so he's perfectly safe.
When during the course of her babysitting for your son did that happen? How old was he?
It actually happened on multiple occasions. I just kept bringing it up, and so, oh, he's fine. And then one day I get a phone call from her saying, well, I'm not going to let him walk around with the cleaners anymore. He just sprayed 409 into Trevor's eyes.
When did you take your son out of Miss Blake's care?
On the 25th of July of this year.
And what was the impetus of you doing that?
A letter that I sent her that listed the reasons why I was terminating her services.
Let me see the letter.
The straw that broke the camel's back was that I allowed her to take my son to Las Vegas because she was going there for 4 days, one of which on the very first day was my dad's day off because my father lives there, and I figured, well, she can take my son to see his grandfather.
Yes.
So the very first day that she was there, it was my dad's day off. My dad did not see his grandson that day.
Right.
My dad didn't see his grandson until the night before they left, and only for half an hour. So I was on the phone with my dad when she walked in the front door. So my dad says, well, they're here. I'm going to see my grandson. I hung up the phone. Half hour later, I called him back expecting to hear, oh, yeah, everything's going great. I'm loving my grandson. I don't get that. I get, she doesn't like you. I said, well, Dad, why doesn't she like me? She has nothing good to say about you. She said you're self-centered. She says you're never there for your son. And I said, this is why I had her as a babysitter, because I'm in the Navy and sometimes I do work some late hours and I live 40 miles from work. So sometimes I go home and I sit in traffic for an hour and a half and I don't get there till 6, 7 o'clock at night. And it's not that I don't want to be there for my son. It's just that I had her services so that I wouldn't have to go to my boss and say, it's 4 o'clock, I got to pick up my son from daycare.
Your Honor? Just a second. Okay. So are you telling me that the reason you decided to terminate her employment, by the way, how much did you pay her?
$300 twice a month. My father also told me that...
Don't tell me anything that your father told you, sir, because that's all hearsay. So you paid her a little over $600 a month. Is that right?
He didn't pay for the first 4 months. We got the baby on December 26th. He had nothing, no diapers, no clothes, no items. This is the first baby item I bought him.
Just a second. So is what you're telling me the first 4 months
4 months,
gave you...
nothing.
Is
Not
that right?
one dime.
No, that's not true.
Show me proof that for the first 4 months you paid her $300 twice a month.
I paid her in cash. She insisted on it.
And later?
It was all cash. I mean, I paid her by check one time, and she got upset because she said she didn't want to have to make a trip to the bank.
So let me ask you this question, sir. You wrote this after you had already taken your son
out of
without
her
telling her.
Right.
So
Your Honor, I have court documents to where Carolyn was so involved in his divorce and so pushy in regards to the care of Carolyn that
Cody.
the attorney actually asked that she not be in the picture anymore.
Doesn't make any difference. I told you once before. I didn't ask you anything. When did you meet him?
In March.
When did you start dating?
March.
And were you dating in April?
Yes.
Where did you live?
In Oceanside.
How did you meet him?
I met him online.
And when did you decide to get married?
June.
So you decided to get married in June, and in July all of these irritants that had been bothering him for 2 years all of a sudden made it so that he took the child out of Miss Blake's custody without giving her any advanced warning. Is that the time frame we're talking about?
That's right.
Right. I got it. So you'll answer me when I ask you a question. Do you have children?
No.
Okay. Is somebody from Child Protective Services currently monitoring your home?
No, they closed the case.
Did I look as if I was looking at you? I was looking at him.
They closed the case and they sent they gave me a letter.
I want to see the closed letter. This letter suggests that they conducted an investigation over a 2-month period, and that you now have your child in a licensed daycare facility, but they recommend that he be tested at the Hope Infant program because the daycare provider thinks that the child may have some developmental deficiencies. Have you done that, sir?
I have already.
And what's the result?
The daycare provider thought maybe he might have a speech delay like one of his other brothers did. And I had a representative of the Hope Infant Program come to my home, and it was determined that he does not have a speech delay because he's been talking, he's been putting 3-word sentences together and doing just fine.
Okay. Now we're going to get back to my original question, Mr. Brakefield, and that is, why did you not notify Miss Blake that you planned not to return Cody to her care?
Because before my first wife lost her parental rights, we had actually agreed to physical custody sharing. I informed Miss Blake of that, and she got very angry with me and started yelling at me that I was sending my son off to die, and so I figured, not wanting to go through that again and not knowing what her reaction this time would be, I figured a written letter would be the best route to go.
But you took him on July 25th, according to you, and you didn't write this letter, according to the date on the letter, until August 13th. So between July 25th and August 13th, what communication did you have with her?
I had none.
Well, that's wrong,
Except,
sir.
when I told her I was going to go to Las Vegas to visit my father, which instead I went to another location, and my father started receiving phone calls from her demanding to know where I was, and my sister said she didn't know, and she was told by Miss Blake that she didn't care about me, she didn't care about Cody.
Don't listen to me. That's all hearsay. I'm asking you what you did.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Ben Brakefield and his wife Jennifer Jesse claim child care provider Carolyn Blake falsely accused him of kidnapping his son.
Mr. Brakefield, you're coming to court today, a man who, because of circumstances, finds himself in a position of having to care for an infant full-time and have a job. You did it with the help of Miss Blake for almost 2 years.
Right.
Then you meet this lady, and I gather from your complaint and from her answer that these two ladies did not get along.
At first they did when I first brought her over to her
Right now,
house.
it may be the first minute. After that, they did not get along. And within a month of the two of you deciding to make a life together, you remove Cody from Miss Blake's custody and don't tell her that you're not coming back. And expect her, listen to me, sir, and expect her to just say, well, I guess he decided to take the boy himself. There you go. And forget about it. And some 3.5 weeks later, send her a letter outlining why you took him from her custody. I don't think that's right.
I wasn't sure what her reaction would be, and I didn't want to risk
all you have to do is send her a
being yelled at.
telegram. I decided to terminate your responsibilities with regard to Cody. I will not be bringing him back. After I return from vacation, I have found another daycare provider, period.
I don't think it would have made a difference in her reaction.
Well, you don't know, but at least you would have done the right thing.
I have several harassing phone calls on my cell phone. She threatened to sue for custody of my son. The time she threatened to call CPS. She called my command on several occasions. There are times that she on several of the phone calls says, I am Cody's mother, and even has a message directly to Cody saying, this is mommy, this is your mother. It's just, anybody who's ever read this or heard the messages thinks we did the right thing by getting him out of her care.
Listen to me. I don't necessarily think you did the wrong thing by deciding to resume full-time physical custody of your child. You now had a fiancé who was going to be living with you, so you were in a better position to take care of him. I don't fault you, sir, for removing Cody and deciding to take him back in your full-time charge. I fault you for the method in which you did it. You did it in a heartless fashion. Very heartless. Not only heartless for her, but heartless for your son. He's a 2-year-old child. And the only maternal figure that he's known in 2 years is her. So whether you decide to take him back full-time, you sit down, you have a conversation. And you say, listen, you may like it, you may not like it, but I'm getting married, and I am going to take Cody back. We're going to make a family, the three of us, but I'd like to be able to do this in an orderly fashion. I'd like to be able to bring him to you 3 days a week, and then bring him 2 days a week, and then down to 1 day a week, and you can always visit him, so that the transition for my son would be easier. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
If she rejected that, you've at least done the right thing. But you can't do the wrong thing and then come to court and expect me to feel sorry for you, because after you did the wrong thing, she called Child Protective Services. What you did was wrong. What you did was abusive to a child who has the only other parent that they know, the one that they're with most of the time, Because when you pick him up after work, then he goes to sleep. And that's those days that you're not picking him up because you're going to the gym and taking care of other personal business, right, according to you.
It's part of my job. It's mandatory. It's a mandatory military regulation that you work out.
Great! What does your 2-year-old son have to do with that? All he knows is the only person that's taking care of him is her.
Yep.
And what you did was precipitously and without any thought to how it was going to impact on him, you removed him from the only family that he knew without a transition. And that, as far as I'm concerned, was abusive. And that, as far as I'm concerned, deserves a call to Child Protective Services and say, what kind of person has this kind of judgment? I'm afraid for the kind of judgment that he is exercising with regard to this 2-year-old. You got my drift? I've raised some children, and I have grandchildren, and you're supposed to take the position as a parent that you're supposed to do what's best for them, the children, all the time. Now, it's best for your girlfriend, but what's best for the child. Right. Not even for what's best for her. Right. She's not the issue. You're grown-ups. He's not a grown-up. He's a baby. And you and your first wife put him in a position. You had bad judgment when you picked wife numero uno. I hope that you had better judgment when you picked numero due. I'm not so sure. But you and your first wife, it was your bad judgment picking somebody who wasn't ready to have a family. It was second poor judgment that you had a baby with somebody that wasn't ready to have a family. You find a caregiver who was given your child, who's kept him safe, fed, clean, because she didn't remove him from her custody for 2 years, so evidently her care could not have been that inadequate, sir. And then when you decide to do it, you do it in a fashion that is not designed to ease the transition. As far as I'm concerned, that's neglectful and very bad judgment. So, did you call Child Protective Services?
Yes, you better believe I did.
Good for you. Your case is dismissed.
Why does that excuse you to step out?
He disappeared from his apartment, the child, everything, and just took the baby and left. And the child didn't speak for 3 weeks because he wasn't around me.
I have the right to decide who my son's caregiver is, no matter how close he is to that person.
They hurt the baby, 120%.
She just became overly bonded to him.
I would like to see Cody as a regular aunt and uncle would be.
She just can't get it out of her head that you're not Cody's mother.
I am the child's mother, not biologically, but every other sense I was.
Some people just have mental problems and can't differentiate the line between a caregiver and a parent.
I raised him for 21 months. He only came once every other week to get him.
I took my son home every night except Tuesday and Thursday nights.
That's not caring for a child. He didn't pay for diapers.
When she took care of Cody, he had a full crib full of clothes.
Formula, nothing.
He had about 5 cans of formula. He was doing okay.
He doesn't have his family anymore.
I am Cody's father, and I am his family.
I just hope that Cody's going to be better, and if I don't see him now, I'll see him when he's 18, and he'll know everything.
Cody's going to do just fine. We already got a college fund started for him, and he's going to have a great future.